Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Creative Businessmen. Today we have Joh Harp and Soraja Davis with us. And if you guys enjoy the show, please like and subscribe. And I'll let you guys just go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Okay, hello. I am Joh Harp. I have been doing special effects makeup professionally since 2001, but I have been involved in entertaining people whether they liked it or not since I was a little kid.
Awesome.
I'm Soraja Davis. I'm a costumer or seamstress, whichever one you want to call it. I have been professionally making costumes for about 2 years now, but I've been tearing up my clothes since I was a child. So
Cool.
Awesome.
And so you guys work on a lot of horror films, and do you just do horror films, or do you do everything?
No, not on purpose. I have a very, fond, compassionate love for horror films, but I also am a big fan of a lot of other genres. I like fantasy, actually. I'm a huge fan of fantasy, and I, as much as possible, try and blend the two together.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, that's really fun. Not that I don't want an aspect of reality in my art. I definitely do, but it's a strange blend. But yeah, I'm trying to continue to find fun ways to present my art, because I don't want people to look at my portfolio and say this guy only can do the one thing.
Right.
And I like doing horror. I definitely enjoy it. But I've done kids' TV shows. I've worked for zoos. I've done children's entertainment and magic and circus stuff. So, I'm not just about horror. I do it often. And around here, for me, word of mouth would travel that, this guy can do some great blood or gore effects. But actually, some of the first makeups I started doing were character makeups.
Okay. Very cool. I know we had Brett Mullen and Jason Buterin on recently, and you've done a lot of work for both of those guys.
Yeah.
yeah, they're great.
How about you? What with your costume work? Do you do all different types of films, or when did you get into that?
I tend to always get drawn into horror because a lot of our friends, that's what they do, is horror movies. So it's fun. I've done a couple music videos too, which were really fun. And then of course like haunt costumes and things like that. I came from like a fashion background. I was a model first.
Oh, cool.
So that's kind of how I got into the scene. And then I just didn't want to model anymore. I wanted to be behind the scenes more than in front of the camera. And I love clothes and fashion, so.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Did you start that as a kid or young adult?
I started modeling when I was straight out of high school.
Okay.
And did that for a while. But when I was a child, my mom, she was very encouraging to always do art. I did art with her every single day. And I would play dress up with her constantly. So she really kind of instilled into me like art. That's what I wanted to do as a kid. And she was like, go for it, do
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah, so.
Very cool. Did you have any other entrepreneurial, motivation or what's the word here? Like inspiration when you were a kid, or is it something you just developed as an adult?
I think it was just something I developed as an adult. I loved watching a lot of movies, fantasy movies. I think everyone hates this movie, but I love the old like Batman and Robin movie
Oh, yeah.
from 1993.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's a
love
good
the
movie.
Oh, it's a good
costumes
movie.
in
Yeah,
there
it's a very good
so
movie.
much. So I actually made a Poison Ivy costume because I just loved it a lot. So
That's
watching
cool.
movies like that, I got inspired, especially historical things, because my mom, I always watched TV with her when I was a kid. So she loves historical shows, and I just fell in love with clothes that way, like in
Nice.
movies. So
I think I saw a picture of you guys in those costumes from that movie
Yeah,
on
we
Instagram.
went to a convention
morning.
in Raleigh and cosplayed for fun.
It looked good. You got
Thank you.
pull up a picture of that?
Yeah.
Just-
Let me look for that.
On my Facebook page, I have a whole like work in progress album of that whole Poison Ivy costume.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring it up here in a minute. Which album?
Right there where your mouse is on. Yeah.
Right here.
Mhm.
Oh, there we go. Done. If I, red. There we go.
Oh, so you like literally do it from scratch?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
a lot of my costumes I build from scratch.
Very cool.
And I like to kind of share the progress as I'm doing it so people can see how much work it takes to get some of these things done. But it's really fun to me. I like
That's
tedious
awesome.
things.
Yeah, I actually co-own a comic book store in Greensboro, the Comic Dimension.
Oh,
You guys should come by there when we do cosplay stuff.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, I would have never guessed. This gives an appreciation for how much work goes into it.
Yeah, that
Yeah, I don't think a lot of
Countless
people think about it like
hours.
that.
No.
So that's why I try to show almost all the steps that I.
Wow.
Wow,
Do you have
process.
where are the images of you guys in your costumes when they're finished?
some on Instagram.
Yeah, I think somewhere on Instagram.
That's where I saw 'em, Yeah.
All right. Just go ahead and talk while I look up.
Well,
Instagram.
she had an aunt that also was a seamstress.
Yeah, my aunt, I used to watch her all the time. She made clothes for like all her siblings.
Mhm.
So that was fun. I think maybe just watching her as a kid
That's
kind of
cool.
inspired me. Like my family, they're very creative
Yeah.
and artistic. So I've
That's
just
awesome.
been surrounded by
It's just in the
super
family.
creative people constantly.
That's awesome. Well, are you from here or?
Originally, I was born in Germany.
Oh,
So I
very
grew
cool.
up overseas in Germany. My dad's military. He's
I was
Air
Army.
Force.
Air
Yeah.
Force?
Yeah, Air
That's
Force.
right. One of my brothers is born in Germany.
Yeah, and then my mom, she's Dutch. So
okay.
my family, they live in the Netherlands.
Nice.
So
Well,
That's
that's
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, I spent, I want to say we were there in Germany for 4 years. So if my father was in here, he would speak about he has one line he says all the time. And then there's about 6 or 7 other phrases he still remembers. But other than that, that's about it. But if he was in here, he would rattle it off.
Yeah. I try, but they correct me constantly.
yeah, I've tried to teach him a little bit of Dutch here and there.
Oh, so you
but-
speak Dutch?
Yeah, not as fluent anymore because I don't use it. There's
Yeah.
no one really to talk to here. Most of my family want to practice English too.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah.
But I'm trying to like relearn it again.
I'd love to go to the Netherlands. It looks like a really cool place.
Oh, it's beautiful. I think everyone should go at least one time.
Yeah. I've been to Aruba. I know that
Yeah.
they own that. That's a
Mhm.
cool place.
And Curacao,
Okay.
which is close
We
to
just need
Aruba
a-
too.
a login for Instagram to see it.
Would that be an hour?
Yeah, but I need to
Yeah.
Hang on.
username, password in. So if you want to do that. And
So have you been to Germany or to the Netherlands or any of that stuff?
No,
or-
we were supposed to go this month.
Oh,
Yeah, I've never been. I've actually never been out of the U.S. I've only been to a few states
I don't remember
Um,
that stuff, man.
in the U.S. So traveling there was going to be a really big deal for me. Plus, it was going to be so much fun, which we're still going to do it. But
Yeah.
getting to hang out with her family there would make it I think a much more enlightened experience
Yeah.
because they know exactly, and just like
I'm messing up
it
with
would
switches.
take up the entire time to visit all of the museums that they have there. And
I'm
that's
sure.
like at the top of our list. That, and I want to see a castle in real life.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I want to go back. Everything I remember is from a kid's perspective,
Yeah,
so it's different.
yeah.
You know, like I remember we lived just off base, and I'm assuming they were like these massive apartment complexes. I remember them being concrete, but I don't know. It's just from my memory, and I remember it's when it snowed. You know, and I remember being able to walk from where we were, and it felt like a long walk, but we would walk to like the pool.
Yeah.
But the pool was huge. They had high dive boards. They had all this stuff. Like it was like almost like a water park.
Whoa.
But I remember all these things, and I'm like, I'd love to go back as an adult because we were also stationed in, I think anybody that had military, especially Army, they were in like Virginia Beach, Fayetteville, Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
So while we were in Virginia Beach, there were things I remembered as a child. Obviously, I was able to go back as an adult. And I went to the house we were in. I went to the street I used to walk. I went to the park that I used to go to. And it was weird, right? Because I had dreams about those things, and like it kind of like made it real for me. So I want to do the same thing with Germany. I want to go back to where we were, kind of deal. We were there when the Berlin Wall came down, so I've got a piece of the Berlin Wall.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'd like to go back. So it's on my list. I don't know. I didn't have a plan to go yet, but it's on the list.
Yeah, it's funny because nature changes. You know, a tree that you were around as a boy was small, you know, and you could go back and it's grown, and it makes things sort of unrecognizable.
That's true.
Leaves are where they weren't.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Well, there's a lot of natural elements to those landscapes, at least in the paintings and photographs that I've seen. It's not, the cities are still cities, but they don't feel like, you know, a city from the U.S.
Right.
Because I don't know. I've not been, but it's just, to me, it feels so much older
Yeah.
because it is. You know?
Yeah.
That the land isn't older, but structurally, you know.
Yeah. No, I think from memory, that's the feeling I got from it too. Is that?
Yeah, definitely. Everything is a lot older.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something magical about seeing, well, a jewel, a crystal. You know, if you were to find one, not only like financially that's exciting, you know, maybe I can make money off of this, but also, well, this doesn't just happen, you know, over long periods of time it's created. So there's something magical about that. I think that a city can feel the same way, especially when it holds things that changed history.
Oh yeah.
You know, that formed where I am today because my ancestors came from there, you know.
Yeah.
I know nothing of it.
Right. Isn't it crazy how that happens over time? Like
Very
you just,
strange.
it's almost like it gets forgotten in the generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we're in.
There we go.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I got to do this photo shoot with a good friend of mine. He did a lot of photography for me when I was modeling, and he's great.
That's awesome.
Now, I would imagine at Halloween you guys are getting requests from everybody to help do their stuff. Is that accurate?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
accurate, but we don't take
Yeah.
those jobs.
There's no
Halloween is
time.
pretty sacred to us. And I'd like to say it's because we're the most Halloween people that exist, but I don't think that's true. I think it's just that we work so much with doing things that are scary that we just want to carve out a little bit of the holiday for ourselves, to be kids again, to, you know, carve some pumpkins and eat too many sweets, and you know. So that's generally why we don't take on those extra projects, just because we need a moment to enjoy the season. It's important.
It's a
you
fun
know.
holiday.
It
Yeah.
is, and you know, we're both big fans of that time of year, fall and fall fashion, you know, because I like coats.
That's cool.
Now, does she design any of the stuff that you wear like a daily or no?
I help him get dressed
Yeah,
sometimes.
she helps me dress. She helps me pick out clothes often.
That's
but,
common in
That's
any
convenient.
relationship. That's
Yeah.
yeah. I make some of my own clothes where I say I don't sew them. I do not sew.
We alter.
Yeah,
like,
we alter
it.
clothes
Paint
for
it
personal
or
purposes. But yeah,
add
we'll
trim.
make her own screen prints and things like that. Just because if I can't put my artwork in a gallery because it's not quite good enough, well, I can wear it like a billboard.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
I like that.
Well, that's very creative. So that's cool. When did you get into special effects? Like, what inspired you to get into that?
I have a great answer for that. Well, there was a couple of things. It was like a slow build, really. There was always this fascination with altering my appearance, not being me. Make-believing I was someone else, or finding a new face.
Right.
That was fun for me. I guess I was. There's a strange balance, okay? That there part of me is very shy, and then there's another part of me that's outgoing. But it's a pretty 50-50 mix, and I'll go through waves of feeling one or the other.
Right.
And so as a kid, I was really, really emotional, and sometimes I was, withdrawn. And when I became withdrawn, I still wanted to visit the world. I wanted to interact with the world, but I wanted to do it in a way that I could present myself with sort of this barrier or shield. So I started making masks and finding things around the house to paint my face with.
Yeah.
Some of the first masks I made were paper mache. This one's a modern one that I made last year.
Oh, cool.
It's paper mache, but just paper and paint.
Right.
It was all I had as a kid. I didn't have a job. I couldn't buy supplies. And at my age, my parents didn't see it as the best avenue. Like, they supported that I wanted to do theater, so I got to do theater. And I grew up in a church, and my father is actually a minister.
Oh, okay.
And they're very generous, gentle people, very loving people.
Yeah.
Not what sometimes people would initially expect from religious, can get its own taboo
Ideologies.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was an opportunity as a kid to do theater, and the church I grew up in was doing these big performances where everyone in the church that was willing to perform would be in the stage, and we did these productions that were very elaborate, where we do crucifixion, and there was special effects, there was fog, there was big set pieces, there was
Oh, wow.
costumes. So I was a little kid growing up being surrounded by these really big shows that I was a part of. I was behind the scenes, and I was also working and seeing the adults make and create all of these props and costumes. And so in a way, I grew up seeing this sort of low budget attempt at creating entertainment, but also for the purpose of sharing story or helping people.
Yeah.
And that is something that I could sink my teeth into. I can appreciate. And sure, to this day, now I still do horror stuff. But when you strap in to ride a roller coaster, this butterfly feeling where you gather your emotions and your strength. And when you get to the end of that ride, it was fun because it was still in a way safe. And it was an adventure, and it gives you a feeling of growth and experience. It's almost like facing your fears, but in a safe environment. And I think that's kind of my personal message when it comes to doing horror-themed stuff. I'm not just trying to promote violence and sell because I want to show things that are bad, things
Yeah.
that are hurtful. But violence is something that exists in nature, and
Oh, yeah.
and we can't cut it out. So my thought process when I was faced with, parents saying, you can't just like monsters because they're bad. And I thought, well, first of all, I don't know that monsters exist,
Right.
but
Well, they do, but they're
I've met
animals.
a couple human monsters.
And people.
Yeah.
And people, yeah.
So there is this aspect that, in nature, I could be attacked by an animal.
Right.
And in the world of adulthood, I can be attacked by, I don't know, a corporation or someone that just wants to take advantage of my wallet. And there's a lot to be afraid of in the world. And I still find that as an adult, it's kind of fun to make believe, to put on a costume, to put on a mask, and to show the world that we can be brave, bold, and big, and sometimes it's easier to do that behind the cover of a mask than to say out in the open with your own, personal face. I mean, there are things set up nowadays where people can say and be whatever they'd like and not be doing that in person. So it's not terribly different from the desire to entertain, but also to teach through experience. And I think that's really what theater was. I mean, when it first started, in the earliest days, it's just the news.
Yeah.
It's people telling stories to learn something from the
Yeah.
story. And the story is best told when it's presented in the most easy to understand aspect. So that, what I mean by this is, if you're watching CSI, and they show at the beginning of the episode someone's murdered in a very horrible way, and there's violence on that table. And for a moment, even modern, everyday audiences view this terrible graphic gore, but they accept it. In that mode, in that situation, it makes them think about how they need to catch the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's what the thought process
Right.
is there. So now we're saying there is a reason behind that violence. It pushes that story, and I don't think it's the storyteller's fault or the artist's fault that violence exists. It isn't. Now, can we take the platform and make it just solely about violence and encourage it being a positive thing? Yes, sure. Politicians can use the platform the same way. So
Yeah, I agree.
You have a responsibility as an artist when you're sharing your artwork to understand how it will affect your audience. I don't think it's fair to overlook that. And I ramble a bit. So.
No, I
like
agree with
that.
it. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, even from an acting standpoint, you're trying to express a story, tell a story. Someone has to be the bad guy
Yeah.
or the bad person.
Yeah.
Someone has to play that role, even if they hate it.
That's right.
And with what you do, I mean, a lot of stuff, especially monster things, it's not real. It's just fun. It's cool art.
Yeah.
When you get into things like CSI or murder type stories that can be real, that's scarier because
Right.
human beings are the scariest thing on the planet for sure.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned animals. I mean, there are some scary animals that are real monsters.
Yeah.
Bears and
Yeah.
tigers and stuff like that.
And I'm probably using the wrong word, but I feel like there's a lot of symbolism in what you said earlier. Like, if you think about a monster, this is just the symbolic version. A monster might represent some of the darkest parts of humans, right?
No, that's the best way to
And-
share the story.
Yeah, and so for me, it's funny when you bring that up. I was literally just brought back to a conversation I had recently. So, America overall, I think, is pretty safe. We're not a third world country. I think for most people, the chances of them getting murdered or raped or these things are on the lower side, right? So, in the comfort of your home or a theater or in front of your phone, a screen, you can put yourself for a moment in this environment where you have an opportunity to learn and like, hey, here's this really horrid thing that happened and here's the story that goes with it. And maybe it's like you were saying, like education, like maybe if it wasn't for that form of entertainment, people would be, what's the word? Just not prepared, it's like, maybe I see something in real life and I go, oh man, that's off. And maybe that's because of the education I got from watching some of the true crime stuff, maybe, right? Like, oh, something's off with this guy. Something's wrong here, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some of that comes from that. But I think some of the best stuff I watch creates that emotional response as if I'm in that moment. And it really captures my attention. And I'm like, wow, like that, it just really resonates with me. For a moment, I can be in that, a part of that film. So I think that when the artists pull that off, that's like when I'm at the most interested, I guess. And whatever they did will stay with me for a long period of time. So I don't know.
They can have an opposite effect too. Sometimes when people watch a film and they feel like, oh, I could do this in that situation. Maybe it doesn't work out that way. Like that's not really how it works.
The phone's ringing. Don't answer the phone.
Yeah. Don't try to fight the guy with the big knife.
No.
Yeah.
Unless you got a gun on you, and even then, I don't know how you feel. We don't want to get in that conversation.
You still
but
may not make
even
it,
then,
yeah.
you might want to shoot as you retreat.
It's not a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have infinite bullets.
Yeah.
Hey Joe,
Superpowers.
Which came first? I mean, obviously you kind of got the bug like with doing like theater and stuff with church. So you were exposed to costumes, probably some early effects, maybe.
Definitely early
maybe
effects.
some
Even blood
fake
effects.
blood. Yeah, I figured.
Even blood effects.
And after that, though, what came first?
Okay,
Movies or
I'm sorry. Yes,
or
I got-
was it like Kersey Valley Spooky Woods or something like that?
That's a good question. I could talk a very long time. So let's see. After the church stuff, or kind of around the same time, actually, there was...
How old were you around this time? You were talking about the church stuff.
Well, my whole life.
Okay, so
like,
yeah, all your childhood.
All of my childhood.
Gotcha.
So in elementary school, I'd say near 4th or 5th grade, there was a class that the school had that was mime. And so that was my first experience smelling and touching and playing with makeup. I wanted desperately to run away from home and be a clown, and that was really hard to tell to my peers the older I got. They did not like that. I got picked on a lot.
Jason Buterin, Jason doesn't like that, does he?
I think that, well, he might actually appreciate that about my personality, as long as I don't bring it close to him.
Yeah,
He's cool with it. And he's like, yeah, that's good for you. That's good.
Yeah, stay over there.
But so that was the first time I got to play with some makeup, and then I continued doing theater in school because that was an opportunity to do different facets of storytelling using, horror or drama, because when I went to high school at Wake Forest, I grew up in Raleigh. I grew up in Wake Forest just outside of Raleigh, but Wake Forest Roseville High School was the school I went to. And Marie Jones was my teacher there, and she was really inspirational to all of her students and encouraged them. She was also a English teacher, and I struggled in school because I was great at painting and sculpting, and I really only cared about those things and girls. So it was challenging to focus when there was a window nearby. I really struggled. So I kind of felt like I struggled so much with school that there was really no other options for me out there other than the arts. I honestly felt like I was screwed unless I could be good at art, because I wasn't an athlete. I mean,
Well, you knew what you wanted to do.
I was passionate, and maybe to fault because I was annoyingly passionate. I was a middle child, so that helped. But I would play dress up. I mean, you could interview my relatives today, and they would tell you, oh, yeah, he was walking around Christmas time dressed up as Santa Claus using cotton and red underwear.
I love it.
Whatever I found. I would cut up my parents' clothes. My mom didn't wear makeup, so I couldn't steal her makeup. So I would use household products, powders, and mix them with things that would make them stick to my face, or I'd use things that you shouldn't put on your face. I experimented gluing a lot of stuff to my face. And body later on in life, which those are some terrible stories. But slowly it developed through continuing to do theater and mainly acting, because I was really excited about performance art, making an audience feel emotion based off of the emotion I have within me and letting it come out of me. That was magic. There was magic there. It was something that you can't box, you can't explain. You just have to experience it. And when you feel like you've honestly moved an audience to an emotional place, it's really special. And then, it's out of your hands. It isn't you. It isn't you. You're just a part of that experience.
Channeling the experience.
So you can't take advantage. Yeah, you can't claim that all of that, it all came from me. Like, no. You didn't write it. You're a part of it, and that's okay. It's okay to just be a part of it. You don't have to be in control of every aspect. So I realized that there was a chance I would not be a successful actor. There was a chance. There was maybe a good chance. It's not that I was bad at performance. I had passion for it, but it did provide me with challenges. So throughout this entire time, I was continuously making things at home, making masks, playing with makeup. And over the years, I just had a little more money to buy a little more. But I got tired of buying it. I got sick of it because the prices kept going up. I mean, in the 90s, you got like $25 masks and $60 masks, and now you got masks that cost $1,000, so the price of the materials goes up, the price of those products goes up, and I got tired of not being able to afford them to help me create. So I decided, well, I'll learn how to make it. Yeah. So I did. I did everything I could. I went to every artist I could meet in Raleigh. I went to art stores and went to their classes. I started working at a Jerry's Autorama and met a whole bunch of artists, and individually each of them taught me different things. One taught me sculpture. One taught me painting techniques. One taught me how to do pen and ink and design, so that if I wanted to express an idea that I had and have someone want to pay for it, then you have to have a design for it.
Right.
So I learned from all of those artists, and then I found an artist in High Point, North Carolina, that was working on a show called Spooky Woods for a company called Kersey Valley Incorporated. And so I moved here and started working with him, and he had been a mask maker for years. He was a lot older than I was, phenomenal artist, great sculptor and painter, and he worked with Universal for many, many years. And so he wanted to start his own business, and for a short stint, he and I had a business together with his wife, and we sold costumes. We sold to Disney World, we sold to haunted houses, and a bunch of different companies. People that were buying costumes from us that I didn't expect would buy them. But that was kind of my growth. Once I got some of those costumes sold, I kind of felt like I was reaching the inner circle of the industry. At that point, I finally felt like I'm kind of getting there. To that point, I've done a couple of independent movies, and I acted in a couple films, and so I was understanding that film was an interesting way to present my magic, because when you're doing a magic trick for an audience, if you're performing that trick on stage, you gotta find the most clever way to present it to the audience. But if you're filming that trick, well, you don't have to think so hard. You can hide cords and tubes just along the sides, or I can black it out, or have someone digitally remove it.
Yeah. Cover it in green tape.
Yeah, you can cheat with that. So I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. I can really fool an audience and make them believe that even the impossible is possible without a budget, using those techniques. So I got excited about that. But as far as me being a filmmaker, as a kid, I got a stack of VHS movies that I made, and they're entertaining to watch, but I cannot share them with anyone because some of my relatives are in them.
Oh,
and I got a cousin that's trying to become a senator, and he's just like, nope, no way, no way.
That's
and he
funny.
has different names, so don't bother looking him up.
Fair enough.
I always loved special effects when I was growing up. My dad's a really good artist, and I was always into art too. And when I was a kid, he would help me design costumes and stuff for Halloween, and so I always had that creative background also. So I can appreciate what you do. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Actually, when I was a teenager, I had thought about possibly going into special effects and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
never went that direction. I have I guess my business side and creative side are about equal. I can dive into either one.
That's a skill.
Yeah.
I don't have that skill.
Oh, well.
I don't either.
But I enjoy both. I can go into a flow state either direction.
Yeah.
But I decided to focus more on the performing side and the writing.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy the hands-on creativity. There's something about it that's really rewarding. And I'll do stuff like that occasionally, paint or draw or, work on a piece of furniture or something. Just something that's, I don't know, it's therapeutic almost
Yeah.
when you go into those
creating.
flow states. Yeah.
You're creating. I mean, it's really simple. It's not a difficult concept. It's very therapeutic, and
Mhm.
that's why they have, people that deal with many different issues choose to paint sometimes just to find a way, or write, or
Right.
draw. These are very old human ways of releasing tension and pain, and sometimes personal.
And also, you mentioned about acting, about affecting other people through your performance. That's a lot of fun. It's a really cool experience. And I'm big into science and technology too. And humans we're emotional,
Yeah.
empathetic beings. So
Yes.
when you start to if you are really committed to it, then other people will watch the performance, and they can relate through we have mirror neurons in our brains.
Yes.
So if they've done studies that show on MRIs that when you're watching, say you're watching a film and the actor is doing something in the film, the brain waves of the viewer are actually similar to the brain waves of the person doing the other act.
That's right.
You know, so it's well, they've done studies with people just standing face to face too, where maybe you're eating, like one person's eating, the other person's watching them, and the brain waves sync up.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that's why we can tell when something's not, I guess, genuine.
Yeah, yeah. We teach those techniques for the haunted house actors.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like the same thing advertising does. They show you someone eating ice cream or that, you know, the sparkling top of the Coke. You hear that sound and fizzle, and you remember what it's like to drink that. You remember the time you relate to it, and that's there's something very human about that. You know, because I performed for my cats before, but they just don't like it. It's not the same show.
They just turn around.
Yeah, they're like, "Wait, where's the catnip?"
Yeah.
What
Then
can
they
I
can
knock off
enjoy
the
it,
counter?
right?
Yeah,
Then it's
right,
a fun
right.
show for them. They have to be in the right state of consciousness.
Joe, you'd mentioned like working for Spooky Woods and stuff. Most people like don't really think about like the haunted house business as being a big kind of booming kind of crazy business. And most people just think it happens just a little bit of the year.
Yeah.
You know, there's really, you know, a few people join on, they do it, and then that's it. But that's not really the case, is it?
No, it's not the case. It is a booming industry. People kind of underestimate, and I think there is a part of the industry that they like to share. They like to spread the word, and they certainly try. There are a lot of really phenomenal shows, whether they're big shows that have been around for years or they're home haunts. The thing is that when you go to any like kind of social circle, you sometimes will realize how small it is, and how in the haunted house industry, it's really full of people from all different walks of life, that surprise me, that are extremely passionate about this. Like they really are into it. And so when you say haunted house work, people go, "Oh, that's one night a year." It's like, well, no, these shows run for like seasons, you know, for months. And
it's a big business too.
It's a huge business. I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever been to a trade show for a haunted house before, but it's much more. But it at one point was like a $7 billion industry.
Wow.
You're walking through a trade show looking at artists from around the world, some that worked on film projects, some that were on television shows, and some that are just trying to get people in the States to see.
For a special effects guy, it's got to be a dream.
It can be intimidating. With the haunted house industry, it's kind of an art exhibit for those themes. Mm-hmm. So they don't really deviate. A lot of the companies stay safe because they know what over the years have sold and kind of what the general audience expects out of a haunted house. For our show, kind of noticing that trend, we do our best to build our show in a sense from scratch, and we also try diligently to not purchase too many of the generically themed things. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the themes. You know, I'm not against themes, but I can't say I invented vampires. You know, they existed way before me, ghosts and things like that. So I can only, as an artist, do my version of that. And so that's what I mean by revisiting the themes. Now, one thing that we've really focused on for Kersey Valley Spooky Woods is we avoid doing any kind of iconic character from a movie. We don't do that. We don't do it. A lot of shows do it. I don't see much value in it personally. That's not to say it's wrong. I'm just saying personally, as an artist, I don't like the idea of someone coming to me and going, "Can you make something that someone else made years ago?" Yeah. It's like, well, that's no fun for me, because then it's not my piece at all, is it? It's your piece because they had an idea and it was technically theirs to begin with. So I'm not fond of that style of art. And so I I talked to the owners of Kersey Valley, and I plead with them, and they're very respectful of our art. They honestly believe in us, and they do their best to stick by our side and help us take this strange attempt to draw audiences in with completely original concepts.
Well, clearly it's working because it's one of the best ones.
Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
That's
Yeah.
very kind of you to say. I'm glad
You-
that
I know.
people appreciate
We're
it.
trying.
Yeah, we try hard, and
Yeah.
you know, I love haunted houses. I say it doesn't matter for me. It doesn't matter if it's a good haunt or a bad haunt. I don't care what your opinion of that haunt is. I appreciate that they did it.
Yeah, I always
That's
loved
it.
them growing up because I enjoyed being scared. It was fun.
It's fun. in
Now
a
as an
safe
adult though,
environment.
it's not scary anymore. But it's interesting to see the artwork and see
Yeah.
the performance and what goes into it. And I don't think people realize how much money or investment is required to build out a haunted trail or house like you guys have,
Yeah.
or you work on.
It's an interesting concept. I like to explain it to people this way when they seem confused.
It's a production.
It's a big
Yeah.
production.
Yeah.
It's like a movie or a theatrical show. It's a blend of those two.
Yeah.
Okay, because you have things that you would see in a movie, that kind of quality, because it's up close. And unlike theater, theater has to be theatrical because it's kind of far away, so it has to be a little bigger, a little more bold sometimes. Haunted house, it's up close. It's right next to you.
It's personal.
So it's imagine if you went to a play or a film, one of your favorite, most exciting, most stimulating, and you raise up out of your seat and walk up on stage and go inside of that production. That's what a haunted house is. You're not just watching it. People will say to me, "Oh, I can't be scared by your haunted house because I watched the show Walking Dead." Say, okay, but in the comfort of your own home with the division of the screen there, when you see a cooking show, can you taste the food? Can you smell it? In a haunted house, you're experiencing a bombardment of senses. So it's not just what you see. We control what you're hearing. We control what you feel,
What you smell.
what you smell. So we try and make this as interactive and realistic in that moment as possible, because the objective, despite things like hazard signs or emergency exits that are glowing that we must have and protocols that we can't have actual fire because of fire safety, we have to follow guidelines that are strict, but we stick by them because we want our show to continue.
Yeah.
You know, we're not just going to haphazardly go, "Oh, well, you know, when I was young, I wanted to just be, can we use real fire, you know." But no, that's not safe. You know, you cannot do that. So there are guidelines that you have to abide by for the longevity and well-being of all involved. But that doesn't mean for just a moment, even if it's just a moment, somewhere in the show you're walking through, that you lose your sense of reality and it gets you. And a lot of people don't want to admit. I tell the actors sometimes scaring someone isn't a physical reaction. Their eyes could dilate and they could breathe. And you wouldn't know that you've just gotten them.
Yeah.
But you did.
You got a little
And-
burst of adrenaline.
That's right. I've heard instructors relate a scaring in a haunted house to a balloon that continues to inflate, and eventually you make it pop and get that scream from the guest. That's a fun thought because it is a roller coaster of emotion. In a haunted house, ours specifically, we don't aim to only frighten you. That's not good enough. I don't care about that. In a theatrical show or film, it's boring if that's all it's giving you. It gets old. You can't just go up and yell or make a loud noise constantly for an hour and expect people to pay and enjoy that. That's not going to happen. Unless they want, you know, some kind of sadomasochistic
You have to entertain
experience.
people
You
because
have
it's
to
a long
entertain.
experience, right?
It could take 45 minutes to an hour to
Yeah.
get through. So depending on how fast you run from the monsters, which we don't encourage. Don't run.
Yeah.
Take your time. Look around. Enjoy it. But we want it to be a real experience. And so if the environment has elements of magic, we want it to feel magical. And then that next environment, if it's about humanity and how humans can be horrible monsters, that's the focus. That's what it's about. And I've had a couple artists come and work that understood that vision and really worked hard. Costuming is something that helps that, because A downside to costuming a generic show is if you've never done it before, your first inkling is to go on a page that sells costumes and to buy a costume. And then you're going to get something that comes out of a bag. It's all kind of stitched together. And that works for Halloween night for the kids.
Yeah.
That's fine. That is fine. But when it comes to a performer running around for 4 hours at a night, crawling on the ground, jumping up, screaming, and pulling their garments, they're going to destroy that costume. They're going to destroy the makeups. They're going to destroy the mask, the hair pieces. They tear it to bits because that performer is doing everything they can to get a rise, to get that reaction out of the audience. And those people really work hard. I mean, it's an exhausting job. You know, imagine Mickey Mouse walking around, you know, in midsummer waving.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's hot.
Yeah.
You lose when someone puts on a mask. The audience doesn't look at them as a human, not immediately. They don't see that. At first, there's this element of distrust, and then there's an element of infatuation, and then it goes to I'm gonna not care about you, and I'm gonna try and ignore your existence, and then it goes to don't get too close, and then it goes to I'm fine, I'm walking away from you. This series of experience with anyone either standing in line or walking through the show. But honestly, part of it is the tension built, that rise of expectation and not understanding what that performer is going to do. So that's why the performers are trained to give you gross, comical, dramatic. I want the audience to perhaps even feel sympathy for a character. You know, to not just be frightened of them, because that's not quite enough. If you could be charmed into trusting someone, and then suddenly they teach you not to trust them, you've just been pricked by a thorn trying to pick a beautiful rose, you know? That's the experience at a haunted house. You want to affect your audience in multiple ways with this bombardment of sensory overload and emotional experience, so that when they come out, they're sweating, you know, they're breathing, they feel alive again. It's kind of like, you know, sudden death experience with a safety net.
Well, same thing in film too.
Yeah.
You want people to relate to even the antagonist and sympathize with them.
Yeah.
You know, there has to be something likable about that character, and you have to see, well, this character had some good characteristics at one point, but they've just been damaged.
I fall in love with characters like that.
Yeah.
Well, they're just a little more, you know, rooted, so you can more to kind of unravel about them.
Well, often the protagonist or the antagonist rather, is more interesting than the protagonist.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it gives you this opportunity to question your own belief systems.
Right.
You know, like we were talking before, like how would you react in this situation if you were tied up, or if you were the one tying them up? You know, how would you behave? And it's you can't help but put yourself in those environments and kind of imagine it. And I think that's, honestly, to me, that's far healthier than being so curious that you ignore all aspects of that, and you can only seek to actually experience that violence in a real way. And that would be the wrong avenue to go. I think it's better to try and understand everything about it. If you know nothing of it, then you're possibly more apt to be violent. You know, it's like understanding the history of war. Why did these things happen, and what can we learn from them? If we seek to not learn and shut it all out and close ourselves off from it, I think that's unhealthy. I don't think that's
I think
healthy.
knowledge makes things safer. I think that's why we
Absolutely.
live in the safest time in human history, because we have knowledge and technology. We have access to so much information. We can see the mistakes we've made in the past, and I think it also provides more resources, or access to resources, so people we're not trying as hard to survive now. We can kind of focus on the more positive aspects of life.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully, barring some great natural disaster or something worse than the current situation, we can
Yeah.
continue on this path.
Yes. Soraja, she has helped me greatly try to change the function of the costume for a haunted house. because it's been a struggle for many years now trying to create an actual suit that an actor can feel comfortable performing it. It's huge. It's so important. They get tired and winded so quickly, and cleaning these costumes is an extreme challenge. I mean, we're using alcohol, like vodka and chemical compounds to try and sanitize and clean the costumes on top of washing them. We go to great lengths to create the costumes. So much time and effort goes into them, and then if they're destroyed, you know, we don't have a backup. So I've really had to rely on her, and she's been giving some great ideas of breaking the costume down. Like in general, you would get a costume in a bag, it's all one piece. We want to look at the costuming more like it's clothing, and I put on a shirt, I put on pants, and, you know, these are individual pieces. So she's developed this technique where we're creating costumes that are breathable, bendable, and are layered because of temperature. Talk a little bit about the temperature that we deal with and layering those costumes, because the struggle with cleaning them.
Yeah, especially the season that we're open.
Yeah.
It's when we first start opening the haunted house, it's hot, like really hot, and then later on it gets really cold. So the first year that I worked at Spooky Woods, I tried to pay attention to all the problems, the costuming problems that we have with some of the actors, and I try to accommodate them, because I feel like if they're more comfortable in what they're wearing, they'll perform better, or they'll maybe want to wear it longer. So there's a lot of things that I noticed, and I try to have a lot of options. It's also really hard to try to costume people, because I don't know who I'm going to dress until they get there. So I have no idea what size they are, what they look like. So, and when we do figure it out, I have one day to get it together. Yeah. So that is quite challenging.
So like 160 performers.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was going to ask you how many costumes you have to make. Yeah.
A lot of them I go thrift shopping, because a lot of scenes we don't really need extravagant costumes for.
Yeah, they might be present day.
Yeah,
you know, so we
or
could
just
buy
in the
something.
past, like 50s, 20s, things like that. So that's how we kind of cheat with me not making every single piece, because that's a lot of pieces to make. I mostly focus on our midway. So where people spend more time looking at these characters, I'll make those ones more elaborate versus like in the show. But I did notice a lot of kids that would wear the full body costumes, and half of their body is hidden from the lighting. So I told him, I was like, what if we only dress them up? Like, look at the scenery and see what kind of changes we can cheat a little bit for the actors to feel a lot more comfortable wearing costumes. So we started making just chest pieces we can snap on top of things, and I started breaking things down and just layering stuff. So for example, I made this Edwardian costume for the midway. Of course, it's really hard to make historical costuming. It's a lot of work to go into it, so I had to cheat a little bit. So the way I would cheat is I'd find like a woman's blouse, I'd cut the sleeves off, make new puffy sleeves, and I'd make a collar that just snaps right on top of the shirt. So now we have a collar we could use for anything, and a shirt that can be separate. So those two pieces right there. So I started trying to do that, and it's easier to wash things that way, because some of the things I can't really wash in a washer or dryer, especially if it has silicone or latex on it. I have to dip it and hand wash it and try my best to get it really clean, or get the smell of sweat out, body must. Sometimes when they turn their costumes into me, they're just soaking wet. So
I'm sure.
Yeah. So
that's cool. Do you prefer working on the haunted house set, or do you prefer working in like on film sets, or is the haunted house sort of like how you, I guess, improve your abilities because you're doing so much of it?
Yeah, I actually really honestly enjoy both a lot, because they're different.
Yeah.
I feel like in the haunted house set, just like our owners, they're the owners of Spooky Woods, they're very chill and they have your back, so they let me kind of just go off on these ideas that I have, and they're with it. So a lot of times there, I can experiment with ideas that I have more so than in film. You know,
you have more artistic freedom.
Yeah, I have a lot more artistic freedom there than on film sets. So
that's cool.
But then also on film, I think I was on set of Kill Giggles one day, and one of the actors didn't fit the jacket. That's also another thing. Sometimes people give you wrong measurements. So when you get on set, it doesn't fit. So there was a jacket for a clown that did not fit. It was too small for him. And I spent so much work working on it, but I'm quite adaptable. So what I did, I cut the sleeves off and cut the back of the jacket open and hand sewed the sleeves onto the back of the jacket, and now it fits. And I think I did that in like 20 minutes.
Wow.
So there's always situations like that where I feel like I always have to quickly adjust things. Like same in the haunted house, I'm always doing things like cutting hems off the bottom of things so actors don't trip when they're walking or running around. So.
Yeah, people have no idea how much goes into the wardrobe in films.
A lot. Yeah,
like
a lot.
That's one of the biggest departments.
So there's a lot of money that goes into it, and you know, if you got the budget, you can make multiples, but not everyone has that kind of money. And truthfully, the challenge really, it's similar for FX, but what I'm learning is the supply and demand. There aren't a lot of people that sew nowadays.
It's a dying art.
It's a dying art, and that means that it costs a little more. Like
the fabric price went up a lot, so fabric is a lot more expensive than it used to be. So,
and that makes it more challenging. I mean, even for someone that just wants to sew something for their kids, you know, it's that price goes up, and it makes it challenging. For FX supplies, it's similar in that the weight of the product. If I got to ship anything, the weight, the shipping costs have gone up so much that it really makes it difficult to get a fair budget together for, you know, filmmakers. It's a challenge. It's a real
a lot of that
challenge.
stuff is not reusable either. A lot of these prostheses and stuff, they're prosthetics.
It's like one-time use. That's it. You spend months on something, then it's gone.
But you have the image of it, which is great.
Yeah.
So it's forever.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's the way you have to appreciate it. And you know, we're not impeccably perfect wizards. We have concepts. We try to make our ideas work, and we do everything we know how in the way we know best to try. But it doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. And in the industry, I've heard it said that there's 12 ways to do anything, you know. So I might know one way, but doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way. And I've found that it's actually really important to try to listen to other artists. And, you know, sometimes I can be selfish, and that's hard to do, but it's foolish to not.
Right.
And so I need to listen to other artists, you know. I need to listen to the cinematographer. I need to listen to the sound person to say, your artwork is affecting the image or the turnout this way. And if I don't take those things into consideration, I'm going to keep running into those issues. Just like comparing my special effects art to another special effects artist. People do it. People will compare. But I don't think that people are comparing in a sense that you're good or bad. I think that if you're looking to evaluate art, it's each person's own opinion. And so I don't really have the thought capacity to imagine what everyone else is thinking.
Yeah.
So it's draining to consider it. Yeah. And I don't think, I'd rather just listen, have them tell me, than to try and guess, because that's not helpful.
Well, when I look at art, I look at individual expression. So to me, it's each artist, they have their own way of expressing themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes that may not click with you, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, different people's art is appealing to different people,
Exactly.
different types of art, you know.
Yeah.
But I like art in general, so I can appreciate most art if I can tell that they really are committed to it and you know, putting their heart into it. I really enjoy the sculpting aspect of art too, like what you do. I think it's really cool to see a 3D model of something.
Yes. Yeah, in our lab, we sculpt, mold, cast, paint all of
I
our
see
stuff.
some of your
Yeah, I have some
cool
masks
pieces
I
down
brought.
there you brought with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold one up.
Yeah,
sure,
grab
Brent,
one,
yeah. Hold it up.
Show and tell here. You have to forgive the plastic. That's just how I keep the masks stuffed to retain their shape. This is a latex mask. It's like a mummy mask I made last year. So sculpted, molded, casted, painted, and I think Soraja haired this one.
Yeah.
You do a lot of the hair work
Yeah,
for me.
I like it.
Oh, nice.
She's got tedious fingers.
There's a planning for the shows and films too. It's kind of like planning for a war and stuff. But there's a certain amount of when the season's over with, there's probably a phase of things that you guys go through, and it's probably similar every year, right? Imagine it's meetings first, and then it's broken out from that. So what do you guys go through there?
So you're talking about Crazy Valley, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
We
with the
sleep
100,
a lot first after
Yeah.
it's over.
yeah, try and sleep. Actually, right afterwards, we immediately begin. And it used to be the first discussion was, what can we create that's new? We don't do that anymore. The first discussion now is always, how can we improve? What did we do wrong? How did we fail? Because inevitably, there's going to be an aspect of your art when you look back at it that you want to try and tweak. And if we have the opportunity to examine it and find our faults, then we can correct those things. And we don't do it based off of our own personal opinions. We do it by outsourcing that information. We ask our guests, we ask the employees, the performers, what was your experience like? How can we make your experience better? And they build the guidelines for what the next season will be. Then we'll begin the script process, which is a very long process, where it's kind of all knights of the round table come together and share their own armor, everyone's ideas. And then we have to try and develop concepts fully off of those ideas. We're very excited. Whether or not we'll open the season is to be determined. But I can say for certain our company is the kind of company will do everything in our power to keep our, even if it's just our local guests coming and entertain and having something to do, even if it's on a small scale. We aim to continue to, in any facet we're allowed to stay open, and there is a process in plan, and we are waiting to hear more on that. But
Yeah, I didn't even consider that.
When do you guys when's your season normally start? Is it late summer?
September.
I feel like you guys are going to be fine.
Yeah.
This is a totally different topic, but my casino host, he's been doing it a long time. He reached out to me yesterday evening, and so every casino in the United States is closed, right?
Yeah.
But they've been getting information from a high-level source. They're already planning all their events to start back at the end of June. That's when they're planning to be opening in June, but they're planning their events starting end of June. And there's going to be some restrictions in place, but basically what he was saying was that he thought we had essentially the next 2 months we're weaning off this, and then there might be some things, but maybe even with Kersey Valley, maybe it's just some of those things like smaller crowds at one time. But I think you guys do small groups, right?
We
It's
do,
not, yeah.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
Your guests may have to wear masks,
yeah,
Yeah.
like face masks.
and maybe you're only allowing so many into the
Right.
thing at one time.
That's right.
So I think you're still by then. Hopefully, we're
Yeah, hope so.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Plus the cooler weather. Well, actually, it's probably the worst time, actually.
Yeah,
Fall, yeah.
Throughout the history of doing the shows, it's flu season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If kids are going back to school, or adults going back to school, that may contaminate.
Right.
Things that begin to open up sometimes might help trade hands, but we have to rely on the department of what have you to tell us the do's and don'ts. All we can do at this point is speculate and dream.
Yeah.
We have to
But
put
we are big
plexiglass
dreamers.
walls in front of each exhibit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have discussed every option we could.
Yeah.
Drive-throughs, space
drive-through haunted
performance,
house.
interactive digital performances.
Oh.
If Walmart's allowed to have 1,400 people in it, and Lowe's Hardware, and
Yes.
I feel like the rules aren't being equally applied. So
I could see
Hopefully
that.
by late summer, some of this is ironed out because the ABC store, I'm not a drinker, but when you go by and
It's a line.
every spot in the parking lot's full, and the next neighboring business, and they're all walking the ABC store, and Lowe's has every parking spot full.
Yeah.
Walmart has every parking spot full. Like, you start to see that, and you're like,
I've thought about the ABC thing, but that's pretty essential though, because
Well,
you
I'm not-
imagine a lot of people
it's not-
withdrawing from
yeah,
from
it's not
alcohol
even a question of essential for me. It's
or not having alcohol in this
It's
situation.
it's the no more than 10 people, no more than it's all these
Yeah.
rules. Like, how do you have? And I'm not going to name which Walmart, but I've been to multiple. How do you have a Walmart parking lot that does not have one spot that you can visibly see from? So from
Right.
like up on the hill or entering, and you see, and it looks like it reminds me of like Black Friday,
Yeah.
right? That's what it reminds me of. Lowe's Hardware. I encourage you, go to a Lowe's Hardware.
Oh, it's packed. Yeah.
Yeah, go on a
I-
Saturday.
Just wear a mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you don't have to go in. Go
Yeah.
go to the parking lot, and tell me it's not the most busy you've ever seen a Lowe's Hardware in your life,
Everyone's doing home work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially on the weekend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not dogging it. I'm just saying, like, there's a double standard here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the science clearly shows that wearing masks is the way to go, and that
Yeah.
should be the requirement in public.
Yeah.
Because the studies are also showing that there's a lot more, there will be a lot more fatalities or mortality, a higher mortality rate based on people not being able to work and
Yeah.
and provide and stopping the economy. But it's I don't know, it's a weird time.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So I got to segue in or deviate or go off on a tangent because it's been bothering me the whole time. So, and I was hoping we would naturally come to it, but now I'm just going to ask. So, at what point did you meet him, and how did that evolve into a relationship?
Well, how did you
Oh,
know
that's a
we
good
were in
question.
a relationship?
Well, I feel like you are.
Everyone always feels that way.
Are you not?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe you're
we
not.
are.
I was gonna say. I was like,
Jesse said you were.
hold on.
Yeah.
To
Jesse
me.
didn't tell me, but
Okay.
I was in here. I was like, they got to be a couple. Like when I look at my wife, there's some body language things.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel it. That's what I was
Yeah.
getting. The vibe I was getting. I was like, man, it's like his wife. Like, so, yeah. I mean, I'm not putting that on you.
Right.
But if you're not married yet,
We're not married.
there you
Not
go.
yet, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, sorry to put you on the spot there.
It's okay.
But either way, yeah.
We have a
So-
very.
We got time. We got
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
I love that question.
Yeah, we met at an anime convention in Raleigh.
Okay.
Nerding it up.
Yeah, nerding it up. I was with my friends hanging out. One of my friends, he was doing a photo shoot, so I was there just helping, assisting with him. I was pretty hungover when I met him. So we had been drinking a lot that weekend, so I had like day-old makeup on, big sunglasses. I'm outside helping, and he's dressed as the Joker, which is crazy because that's my favorite like character. Is
Oh,
the
cool.
Joker. So, and he came over and kind of spoke to me.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what he said. He just came over and checked himself out in my sunglasses.
Oh, yeah.
So there's this guy standing in front of me, kind of checking his hair, and
Oh, that's all.
in
That
my
was sweet.
sunglasses.
That was good.
so I'm just like,
That was good.
okay, like what the heck?
Yeah.
What is this?
You remember when he said earlier that in school he was distracted by his art and girls?
Oh yeah.
He learned
yeah.
that trick a long time ago, apparently.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Watch this.
So he told me to take my sunglasses off, so I did, and then he walked away and left. So in my mind, I'm just like, what just happened? I didn't even get a chance to say no or anything like that. There was no like rejection. So it made me upset. So I knew his Joker costume was the best one that I saw at the convention. So I went on the Facebook page, like the group page. I knew someone had to have taken a picture and tagged him in it. So I looked on there, and it wasn't really hard. It was like near the top. So I inboxed him and asked him if he was going to be there the next day, which was Sunday, or if he was going to be at this party like that Saturday night, which he already left town and was at a friend's house. So that was a bummer.
So now is my side of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it.
That's cool though.
I saw her previously, and she was wearing like these flare bell bottoms, and her sense of style captured my attention. Even in this crowd of people playing dress up, I could tell she wasn't in a costume. These were her clothes, And that fascinated me. I was interested in talking to her, but there are two parts of my personality. So there's this brave, outgoing character, but really only works well when he's set up to perform. That's the only time you're going to want to listen. And if it's a cold meeting with a perfect stranger, there has to be some sort of exchange of dialogue. And if not dialogue, it has to be an exchange of physical mannerisms, like mirroring behavior patterns. Your body language, you copy the person's body language, and then they may feel more comfortable interacting with you. So I'm smart enough to consider all these aspects, but not smart enough to find any words. So I had the courage to approach her, but I approached her as the Joker, not as myself, which I don't know if that was the right thing or the wrong thing, but here we are. Yeah. And the Joker made it happen in a sense. I did check my appearance in her glasses because they were mirrored, and I wanted to see her because they were huge, what I call hot girl glasses, because they cover the whole face, and not that, sure, I'm shallow enough to have judged the first meeting on her appearance, because first it was her clothes, and then who she was would become second, because I had no real opportunity to speak with her other than in this defining moment. And the words that I found were, could you remove your glasses? I want to see if you look as good under there as I look on these glasses. So she pulls off the glasses, and I look her dead in the eyes. My brother is standing with me. He's my support system if things go wrong. And I pull the bell cord. Because here's this beautiful girl staring at me with, I'm ready, what do you got? And then I had nothing, and I realized I had nothing, so I'm like, well, no harm in just letting it be. And then I don't lose, and she doesn't hurt my feelings, and I'm not a jerk for saying something like offhand. So I pulled the bell cord, and I turned around and walked away thinking that she was out of my league. Honestly, that was my thought process. I was like, I need to focus on something else. Whatever I could do to talk myself out of the situation. I got cold feet, This is honest truth. And she contacted me later on, and even though I wasn't at the convention anymore, we continued to talk, just as friends, so we could evaluate each other's personality. We had both come out of very difficult, trying, emotionally speaking, relationships. And neither of us really wanted to do like a rebound thing. It just didn't feel right to us. We wanted to try and be friends first. And our friendship blossomed because we had so much in common that we felt like it would be a fair assessment to try and develop a relationship.
Yeah,
and
you guys
did.
definitely compliment each other.
And we did.
Oh,
Thank
thank you.
And I find that was one of the things that, like, in the moments, it's interesting how life works, because since we've been together, we've been through a lot together, things that in no other relationship I have experienced. And all those experiences make up me that sits here today, and she's a part of them. So is everyone else. And we're going to continue to have open dialogue and learn from one another. And being able to create together is a huge deal for the two of us, because we're both Aries, and we're both kind of overambitious to a point, and really driven and a little moody. So,
Well, this show is all about ambitious people. So.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
we are that.
Yeah.
We push each other.
Oh,
I
sure.
mean, that's how we get up the hill. We push each other. Honestly, life is so challenging, and I don't know how anyone else out there feels, but sometimes my emotional state can really interfere with my ability to create and feel productive and happy and healthy, and they just don't always line up. And having someone there, whether it's a friend or family member or even a foe, to tell you can't do it or that you can do it, sometimes either one of those can be the boost you need.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, motivation is a gift,
Yeah.
and in times like this, it can be hard to be motivated.
Oh, it's
Yeah. I suggest motivation, just like showering. It's best if you practice it daily.
Right.
Small things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta do it. I mean, even with everything going on right now, I like to work. I love to work. I mean,
Yeah.
80, 100 hours a week is that's my sweet spot. Somewhere in there, somewhere where I'm barely staying afloat, and I can get to the end of whatever I set my own day, right? So whenever I say that, hey, this is enough today, and I get there and I feel this sense of accomplishment, and it was chaos, and I didn't get it all done, and actually I'm sitting there going, man, there's these 12 things I didn't do. Like that moment, that's when I can actually relax and enjoy my wife or my children or whatever other thing. Because if I don't have that, for me, like here lately, I feel like we've been working 35, 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, like nothing. I don't get paid hourly, but like the amount of work I'm putting in is half of what I've done for a
It's
decade.
not as productive as normal.
It's not as productive, and it's driving me crazy. I can't have that feeling of fulfillment. It's something I got to work on. I can't have that moment that I'm used to getting to. I can't even get there. It's just not possible. So it's difficult. So I've been trying to take those little victories, and we do that with our teams, just trying to have something, because we kept all of our guys on. We all of our core people fully paid. We're trying to find some problem for them to solve, or something for them to, some task to complete each day, even if it's simple.
Yeah.
Something to do. And I've been trying to do that for myself so that I can keep, you were saying, just like that, how do you get all those things to fire and keep that correct mental state? That's a challenge.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a challenge in a regular time. It's even more challenging now.
Yeah, I mean, overwhelmingly I agree with you. Everything you said.
Yeah.
I think, I said to someone at the gas station the other day, they were like, how are you doing? I was like, well, I could complain, but I'd only be complaining about the things that you're feeling. So, and then their response to me was, well, we've been telling everyone to stick in there and try and have a good day. I mean, on the one hand, it's kind of a neat experience. That sounds awful, and I'm not pleased that people have died and have sick. That's sad,
Yep.
and that is a fact of life.
Right.
And my heart goes out to their families, and this
Definitely.
experience is trying for all. And that being said, it's changing the flow and functionality of the world we once knew in ways that we cannot foresee. And the unknowing is something that in blind darkness we fear. And this fear of the unknown causes us to wander so haphazardly into cautious thought after cautious thought. We can carry our own minds to a place where we're more outside of the reality than within it. And that fear can drive us so far that we can continue to promote the feelings and concerns within ourselves till that is all we experience. And that is kind of what I'm afraid of. So we have been trying to continue to work.
We're busybodies. We
are.
have to work.
We have been very busy, but there's constantly been a feeling of we know we can't finish. That's part of the issue we run into.
Right.
We can continue to work,
Right.
but we know we can't finish. There are supplies we cannot purchase. There are things that we can't use right now. There's places we cannot go. We all know these things, but
Yeah.
you have to evaluate. A film professor once said, put every penny you got into movie, and you make the best movie by looking around and saying, what do I have? And that's been our art. Our source of inspiration has been, what do we have? We've been doing everything we can to be productive in a human sense, in that way, going to work in our garden or going and picking wild flowers and tending to plants. She is a great horticulturist and has a huge
Plant nerd.
collection of plants, like weird ones. We only get weird ones. She's got like poisonous plants.
That
and
ties in. Poison ivy.
eating
Yeah.
plants.
Oh,
Yeah. She's got a big collection, which is cool.
That's cool.
So that's been something that's kept us kind of grounded and literally rooting things into the earth. There's something special about that, and just
Right.
trying to take us away from all the fear and concern. Because I had a conversation with my mother about this, and basically she was concerned about me. I'm an emotional guy. She wanted to reach out, and she's very loving and caring, and gives more than most. It seems like. She's a phenomenal woman, and I didn't want to give her fear or a reason for concern, and I tried to open up and be honest without making her afraid of my fears. I don't want to pass those thoughts on, so I just told her I could think about all the things I'm scared of, but I'm choosing not to. I'm not choosing to be blind to what's happening. I'm staying informed and aware and conscious of the do's and don'ts, as all of us should. But I also am finding every opportunity that I can where I have that boost of creative energy or love for life. And I'm feeling those moments with something that I can say, I may not get to the end, but I'm getting through every step. But because the more things we do during this downtime, I'm going to call it, which isn't so much. I mean, our company still has, under the construction way, we still are able to go work and paint. And I have a lab at home, and she has a station set up for seamstress work. So
we're pretty spread out.
Yeah, and we're not hoarders, okay? I don't want to use that term. We're not hoarders, but creatively speaking, we keep a stock of supplies.
Well, you have
okay?
to,
It's a very nicely organized
There you
stock
go.
of
There you
supplies.
go.
Yeah, hers
That's good,
is.
yeah.
Mine's chaotic. Mine's like an obstacle course. It's embarrassing. No, but it's really a matter of space, not objects. We're working hard, though, to stay on task, if you could use that term. We have goals set. There was a movie we were working on. We're still doing work for the haunted house. I'm not at the point where I feel like I'm going to crack open my makeup kit yet. Not yet. Not even my own personal makeups. I want to wait a little longer for that. It's not because I think when I pull out brushes immediately they're going to become contaminated, but there is a real concern when using makeup on multiple people. I mean, there is makeup out there that is sanitary, like alcohol-activated makeups. I mean, the alcohol helps clean the makeup and the brush, and we have Barbasol, and any guidelines that an esthetician has, we have to follow those guidelines. So it is a part of our work already. It's already something that's instilled into us to think about, to be concerned with. So I'm not going to overwhelm myself with those concerns, but they are something I need to consider, and all of us should consider. You don't want someone coming up to you with a brush next to your eye going, oh, where is that brush been?
Right, yeah.
So creative, we are building props. We're doing some mask work. We're doing some latex work. We're doing some set painting and quite a bit of costuming. We recently have been working with another artist, Olivia West, great costumer, and she's been helping us work at Kersey Valley. Matt Patterson has worked with us for a while, very dedicated artist, and Deanna Jones also works very, very directly with us when we try and create these things. But since this has happened, we've all kind of had to spread out a bit.
Right.
So Olivia, Soraya, and I, and occasionally Matt, on our journey, we're finding some time to continue to create. And if we can't do it for the company, we're still doing it at home for ourselves. As she mentioned it before, but I don't like the term perfectionist because I don't believe in perfect.
Right.
So I can't really say that that's something I'm working towards.
Nitpicky, maybe.
Well, what is that? The perfectionist is in the eye of the beholder, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, perfect. Like 3 squares on a canvas might be perfect to someone, right?
Yeah.
You just don't know,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so it's so subjective.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is, and I want I want the art to be the best it can, and everything I do, I'm continuing to try and do how can I do better than the last time?
Oh yeah.
What am I learning?
You're methodical about it.
I vary, and to the point where I'm. Maybe this will never go away, but both of us are bad about getting upset at ourselves for failure. There is always this little portion, this part of our artistic journey where we judge ourselves and almost give up. But don't. We don't give up. We kind of marinate on that And sometimes the fix for that can be as simple as going and looking at work that we've done previous and going, well, it's not so bad.
Right.
We've done things.
Mm-hmm.
And other times it's more an internal journey where you look at yourself and you go, am I punishing myself, or am I doing this for the right reason? Am I going in the right direction with this thought process, with this feeling? Because the truth is, not every effect I do, I talked about this earlier, not every effect is foolproof. Not every effect, because it's just law of nature. Not every design you come up with is what you initially thought it was going to be. But herein lies the magic, because then it becomes its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can push clay around all day and have an intention in mind for the direction the clay should go, but the clay is going to go its own direction. Naturally, when I walk away from it, it's going to change as an element would in its environment and continue to change, just like our bodies physically continue to change. So I have to understand that the process of our art is an inevitable change, and it's a journey we have to keep up and continue. Otherwise, in that moment of giving up or stopping, that's the only time you really have become stagnant, because you seek to learn more, you seek to grow. And if I can avoid that and I continue to have these feelings of concern, I comfort myself in saying, I have these concerns because it means I truly care.
Right. I agree. Have you ever found this too? I've talked to several business people over my background's business, and so whatever that business may be, maybe they own a YouTube channel, or maybe they own a construction company or whatever, but they're really hard on themselves, like you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they've done something, maybe it was an idea, a concept, a thing that they themselves weren't impressed with, but for whatever reason, it resonated with others and actually became something they were widely known for.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though you do something, you've created something that you just might not love for some reason. You just, I just don't know that I did it right, but it became wildly popular, and it resonated with others. Have you ever had that type of experience where maybe one of your ideas, for you, maybe it wasn't like you just didn't think that was the all-it idea, but actually it worked out really well?
The honest answer would have to be yes and no. No being, I don't consider my art to be the focus of any aspect that it's used for. Like, someone could watch a movie solely for the makeup effects, for example,
Right.
or go to a haunted house solely for the makeup effects. But if that's the only thing they're looking at, they're doing every other artist injustice.
Right.
So I can't say that anything that I've made has made a project or had it stand out completely, because that's honestly unfair to the other artists involved. The truth is that there has been times where I wasn't as confident about the work, and there is this like little mousy part of me that's like, oh, I'm not sure how they're going to feel about this. And then you carry that performer in the makeup into the room, and everyone kind of lights up, or you pull off an effect and everyone kind of cheers, and you realize that maybe I overthought it. Maybe I'm making it more complicated than it really needs to be. Sometimes simplicity has its own set of magic, and I might not think that it's everything it could be, but someone else has in the past looked at the work and go, great job, I love how this part folded that way, and it did the,
Yeah.
And in my frustration and fear and distraction of overwhelming feelings, like, what have you done? You made a fool of yourself in front of all these people. You failed in front of all these people. That could be how I'm feeling. What's going through my head? And
Right.
someone could come up to me with genuine kindness in their eyes, and maybe what I've done isn't perfect by every standard. But does it need to be? I don't think so. I think, again, we go back to the rule, if it moved the audience, and in that scenario, it may have moved someone in the cast or crew that decided it was worth commenting on and saying, that turned out neat,
Yeah.
Or it just as, heart-crushing could be like, that didn't turn out the way, But
Which that feedback's good too.
it is. It's actually a little more productive overall in the long span.
I agree.
And the short term, it gives me a boost of confidence, and that's great. But in long term, if someone says, well, this didn't work out, or if you had to change this one part, you know what? I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it, but I need to.
Yeah.
So I should listen up, because in that moment, that artist is trying to say, you know what? You're on the right path, and there's more to grow. And
Yeah.
that's positive. I
It
can't
is.
look at it as a negative.
No, I look at that as positive. Some people are afraid of constructive criticism, or they take it in a manner it's not designed to be given.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot. I would welcome it. Everyone that we work with, they know, and Neil, obviously one of my business partners, we're all belly to belly, face to face, kind of like,
Yeah.
like, hey, good, bad, ugly, otherwise. If it needs to be said, we say it in a
Yeah.
respectful way, right? And it's part of building us up. That's also part of, like, what is that? Stone to sharpen stone. Like,
Yeah.
literally, if you
Oh, yeah.
got to help. You have to contribute to the process. If all I ever did to you was just say, "Oh, you're awesome, you're great, man," if I'm a cheerleader for you, and that's all I am, and that's all I ever contribute, I'm not contributing anything.
No.
That to me is, that person actually is dangerous if that's all they contribute.
Well, real friends call you on your bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
I
true. She
appreciate. I
does.
tell them all the time.
Yeah.
I appreciate people's honesty
Yeah.
more than any. Even if you feel like it will hurt my feelings, I want you to say something to me. Maybe I don't realize
Yeah.
it until someone says something about it, and I appreciate honesty like that.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's a big part of the process. And we were talking earlier about, and this is I don't know, segue back to where we were, but we were talking about, we have to be aware of what's going on right now, right? And conscious of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like this shouldn't need to be said, but a consequence of life is death,
Yeah.
right? So whether we get in the car or an airplane, or we go skydiving, or I go for a jog, or like in our neighborhood a few months ago, father and son riding their bike, hit by a car. Like, anything we go do, we have this potential for something bad to happen.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed. It's just death is wearing a different hat,
Yeah.
right? There's just this new way, right? So, like, for me, it's like, if you're going to live your life, and you were talking about, and I wanted to say this earlier, but you were talking about, you can sit here and you can revel in everything that can go wrong and everything that is going wrong,
Yeah.
but that's not the way to live. I feel like we've got to figure out the way to, hey, yes, we're aware of all these things, right? But I still have to live my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You have
You
to
know?
find a way to move on
Yeah.
and protect yourself as you do so.
Yeah, I'm still gonna fly. I'm still gonna, if I'm passionate about something, I'm still gonna do it. And the 10-year younger version of me is probably chasing that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
The 10-year younger version of you is lucky to be alive.
That's exactly right. And I say this, I think, in every podcast, but like teenage years, definitely 18 to 25.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think I was chasing it on some level.
Yeah.
I think it may be all men, maybe all. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people. Maybe it's just me, but
I got scathed a little bit.
yeah. You touched it. So we were literally outside. I don't know, a day or two ago, and just with our core group, and we were grilling some steaks, and 3 people there, 3 have had terrible motorcycle wrecks.
Yeah.
Neil being one, and I'm sitting here for a second. I'm like, wow. One of them totaled, 2 of them totaled vehicles with their body. You may have totaled one with yours too. I don't know.
Well,
The motorcycle,
bike and the car were totaled. Yeah. I was almost totaled.
Yeah, but all 3 lived, and brutal. I mean, like
I lost my leg, but I actually had less injuries than
Yeah.
those 2 guys. Yeah.
and but you just think about that though. You go, but consequence of riding a motorcycle is.
I mean, the statistics are not in your favor on a
No.
bike. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get political, but the government didn't step in and tell me I couldn't ride a motorcycle.
That's
They did tell me I have to wear a helmet.
Yeah.
I don't know if they should legally be able to do that either. But
Yeah.
I'm not against wearing helmets. I just should have my
It's
choice.
a good idea if you like your head.
I think so too, yeah.
It should be your choice.
I think you
Yeah.
definitely should wear a helmet. I just don't think you should be able to tell someone they should have to wear a helmet.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if a child, minor, protect other people, I get that. Protect myself? I don't know. But anyway, who knows?
Yeah.
I think you could, I mean, if you can glean like good things from it, I mean, humans being what we are, we look for ways around things. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
This is the situation now. Now this is a new mountain in front of us.
That's right.
We can go around it, under it, over it, through it. Somehow there's a way, in many ways, you know?
Well, life expectancy and depending on whose history you go by, life expectancy continues to go up.
Yes.
So, consequence of life is death. The more death that takes place, we become more creative as a species, right, and innovative, and we look for ways to avoid death.
Yeah.
We solve problems.
Safety. We solve problems, right? So, I'm not trying to get morbid, but that's so. The more things like this that happen, in theory, as a species, the more we will try to solve these issues so that we can move forward, and so that I don't know if you guys have children yet, but so that maybe it's a better world for my children than it is for me. I feel pretty good. My life was. My mom hates when I say this, but we grew up my version of poor. She hates when I say that, but I had a good life. I had both parents, and they were good. I mean, like, they weren't beating me. I mean, like, you know, I feel pretty good about my upbringing and the environment I had, but I still want better for my son, my sons. So who knows?
All of nature is connected anyway, and you know, one thing that science teaches is that everything leads to entropy. So nature's constantly trying to get rid of things and destroy things and rebuild things. So, I mean, you know, our lives are in danger every day.
Yeah.
So we have to find ways to protect ourselves and, you know, improve our lives. And, you know, and through science, we've sort of manipulated nature, and we're allowing ourselves to live longer. And who knows, one day we may even be some type of immortal beings, you know, but.
Androids.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably some type of
Yeah.
electronic thing.
Switching our consciousness into synthetic
Into robot
bodies.
yeah.
Yeah. Or some merger or something, who knows.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, I went off on a tangent, but you were talking about that earlier, and I had this thought come in.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like everything has a risk.
Well, I couldn't help, you know, I don't know if it's because I was a boy or because I was raised in a religious background, but part of the teaching in the church that I grew up in was that, well, let's just say that the Bible has some dark stories, you know, there's some bad villains in it, you know. The devil is an angel that was bad in heaven and got put into hell. That's a not full version of the story, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things in that world as a child that I was being taught to be afraid of. And because of that, it was also very, death wasn't something that was hidden in my family. I mean, my dad's a minister. He'll do funerals, you know. We have a very, very big family. So big family, high chance of seeing a lot of people pass. And I've seen my share. I've watched people pass more than once in my lifetime. And that's an interesting thing. And as a child, it can change your reality to a sense that it's sort of like that scene in Fight Club where they talk about how since they've been fighting everything else, the volume just gets turned down a little, you know? So that's sort of the way my life had been, you know, who needs to worry about schoolwork when there's a chance that God can come back and take me away? Like, why do I need to pass this class if any day now?
Yeah, he's coming tomorrow.
So, and I'm not meaning to be sacrilegious or, you know, insult people's religious belief systems. I'm just trying to point out that my personal experience led me to understand and relate to death very regularly, to the point where it wasn't that I lost fear for death. It just, I gained the understanding early in my life to not spend every moment fearing it, running from it.
It's guaranteed.
Yeah, to accept it.
Yeah.
And then to appreciate the beauty. And the beauty is this. There are multiple facets. One being, I'm going to be really generic here, very simple. One being, something dies, another thing is reborn from that. You know, not in all cases, but oftentimes, with the decomposition of something, there can be growth.
Yeah.
The other aspect is appreciating life, knowing that death is, in fact, inevitable. You have to look at your experience in the moment and say, okay, this makes me feel more excited. Like that experience that you had where you're in an auto wreck.
Yeah.
You experience this traumatizing thing, you come very close to death. And then all of a sudden, you got this energy like you just rode a roller coaster. You know,
Right.
your sensations are higher. It's almost like you're tripping or something. You know, you're heightened sensations. Well, they're actually common. Your body tones all that information down because it could be overwhelming to go through every day experiencing that stuff.
That'd be impossible. You couldn't
Right,
function.
you couldn't function. So as you grow, your body decides, well, let me lower the volume on these things so I can get through the day. That's just natural. I wanted people to experience the art that I shared as bringing them a little taste of either a netherworld or an incorporeal hematovore. I want the world to be strange and ununderstood territory, a sense of fantasy, with guidelines that are very clearly real. So I can explain that by saying, looking at like classic paintings of people performing rituals, sacrifices, and things like that. Okay, these paintings can be dark in their imagery, but they tell a lot about the state of finance and struggle and conflict and war and those periods of history. And when you examine every element involved, sometimes they'll like paint these skeletal spirits or demons, and all over there's different cultures that have artwork like this where you find these senses of fantasy combined with reality. And it made the audience consider their own life expectancy. And I like that about that type of art, and I guess I sort of, in a sense, chased that. But I didn't chase it for the purpose of doing horror. You know, I chased it for the purpose of gaining some sort of, this is a generic way to put it, I guess, but some element of excitement and curiosity to the point where I've convinced the audience to crawl into this dark cave because I'm telling them that there is another world that you can experience within this cave, and go into that cave. And this is a broad thought process, but if you're going into this dark new world, you will experience things that you cannot experience in our world. So I want my art to tell that story. I really try to combine ethereal and fantasy and religion and death into a lot of the things that I do. I find it very important to, when I'm doing something that involves violence, to capture it in as hyper-realistic way. Oftentimes, filmmakers don't want that because the audience doesn't actually swallow that information as easily as they do a fantasy-based version of it. But to me, I like to get close enough to a sense of reality so that the audience can feel that they're grounded in the world that I'm creating, but they also can feel like I've taken them on a bit of a fantastical journey. And I guess I'm saying a lot if I were to base that on a painting, but it really depends on, like we were talking earlier, the person's interpretation of the art. But when I'm thinking about creating my art, those are the thought processes I have. I don't think that my art is revolutionary. I'm not considering saving lives with my art. I don't need to worry about that. I'm more apt in inspiring drive and passion in the idea of art, and also kind of hinting towards, religion or no, your life expectancy is short, so try and enjoy it. And this is how I choose to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it because I want you to believe in my belief systems. I just want you to walk around in the world that I created for a little while. And maybe it'll bring you some joy or enlightenment. And if it does, it isn't because of me. It's your own personal experience from it.
Yeah.
I'm a part of it, but I am not it.
Yeah.
That is a broad thought process.
No, I like it though.
It's I fear for sounding too boastful. I'm not. There's a difference between being selfish and knowing oneself, though.
Oh, you're just sharing your thoughts.
Yeah.
A lot of times art is an expression of your thoughts. If they're your fears, excitements, things you like and don't like, you can express those through your art.
I made a movie right out of college. I didn't graduate. I left school because I wasn't doing so hot. And I was in an auto wreck. And instead of spending the money on repairing anything, I spent the money on making a little independent horror film. And I'm not going to get into it because I never did anything with the movie. But I showed the film in a bar, and there were people drinking and talking, and I felt like the audience didn't really respond the way I wanted to. My mother happened to be there, and she walked up to me at the end of this film. Now, to just give you a brief idea, the movie is about a guy that is raised in an overly religious family and separated from all aspects of what normal existence in our world would be, and he becomes solely sufficient, like self-sufficient. So he hunts and gathers, and that's how he survives. He lives in an abandoned house that was owned by his family, and he's abused by his parents, specifically his mother, and it drives him to be a murderer. But here's the thing. The reason he's murdering is because he doesn't, as all the religious information he got, he doesn't know what a soul is, and he wants to prove its existence to himself. So the only reason he's killing is he's searching for a soul, and he thinks he's going to find it if he dissects a body. Like, it's physical. He can hold it, and that's what he's looking for. So she came up to me at the end of this movie, and she looks at me, and she's kind of tearing up, and she says, "I hope that wasn't about me." And I'd like to ask you, that's not how you feel, is it? And I said, "No, Mom, it's just a way of storytelling to really, like, kind of more outlandishly get the point across to the audience in supernatural aspects. Like, there's a hint of supernatural to almost everything I do, I find. The reason I'm pointing this out is because she said this to me, and this leads me to be concerned about my future art and how people are going to perceive it. So I don't want people to think I'm a murdering, evil, bad person. I'm not. I do very often study dark things, but I don't study them with a fondness and appreciation for them. But sometimes our world is beyond our understanding in its complexity, and
Most of it.
yeah, I don't just study, human anatomy. I study plants and insects and other cultures' folklore. These are things that I get inspiration from. I mean, I can look at, like, the growth pattern of a cicada or beetles and how they expand within their shell, and they eventually evolve and grow out of this shell, and they crawl out a larger creature than they once were, or a moth that goes into this, like, is a gestation period, they go into this cocoon, and all these different kinds of cocoons they develop. Why am I bringing this up? Well, the point is to say that the world around us is honestly more fascinating than we give it credit for on a regular basis. We kind of tend to get caught up in what's on TV, what's my favorite show doing now, what this issue or that issue. And sometimes we have, the problem is we'll overlook things. Government can easily distract us. Like, look over here. Magicians do it too.
Oh, yeah.
Look over here.
Government's
Worry about
definitely doing
these
it.
things.
Always.
Don't concern yourself with these things.
That's right.
I mean, they're masters at that. I understand. I understand that. I
Yeah.
know that song and dance. I'm familiar with it. So when I see it, I see it. I don't think other people do always. That doesn't mean I'm better than others. It just means that perhaps I could help direct people's attention and say, hey, this kind of thing exists. Look at it and understand it for what it truly is. And now separate from it. Get away from it. Forget all those, modern amenity concerns and go to a world that is natural to you. Spend a little time in nature or appreciating your favorite dish. Enjoy the things that you enjoy as a human, and remind yourself that it's your life, you're living within this world, and you need to make it worth living for you. That doesn't mean dousing or destroying others as part of that mode. I don't believe in that. I don't think it's acceptable to climb on others' heads to get to the top. I don't believe in that mentality. That it's done, yes, I understand it's done, but it doesn't mean I have to do it. It's
Right.
like people saying that I'm so nice. That's a term that bothers me sometimes, because I am a very genuine, kind, sweet guy. You look at my art and then you meet me, you're like, this guy? You did that? You're not the same person. And, you know, I have my faults, failures, and concerns too, but I try to be open with others because we've discussed this a lot, especially lately.
Yeah.
When you go on a set or when you're working with someone, you have no idea what's going through their mind emotionally, what they've been through, and what their life experience is. So you cannot assume that you know them based off of something they said on one day or something they're wearing, perhaps. You cannot understand a human that way. We try and categorize them so we can get a better understanding in that way, but fully, no. If I want to understand my audience and share something with them, I have to appreciate that their understanding of the world around them is equally complex. And they might be struggling with something that they don't need me piling more negativity or frustration and sadness on top of it. I can't read for certain how they are, so better to tread lightly and with respect and mutual understanding that, hey, I recognize there are boundaries I shouldn't cross, so I am not going to, as best as I can from now through whatever is the rest of my existence, I am trying to be kind and gentle to the world around me because I feel like it's kind of taboo to do so sometimes. Like people have the attitude occasionally. It's like, you're going to get farther by being a jerk, especially in the entertainment industry. And maybe that's true. And maybe I will fail because I'm not that person. But in the end, on my deathbed, and I look back, am I going to be upset that I did my best to be positive and good and fair? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think I'd really honestly regret all the nasty times I had and all the ways I was underhanded with others. I'm going to regret those things.
Yeah.
Well, I think you bring up a lot of different topics there, but it's good to respect other people, and I think people appreciate that. And also, if you're trying to express yourself through your art, you want people to respect you as well and appreciate you as a person, as an artist. But and sometimes your art may be offensive. It may not be nice or friendly. It may be something bad, but there's a lot of bad in the world. There's a lot of darkness. Yeah. And also, you talk about how you get your inspiration from things in nature and just in reality. And I've said this before. Mostly what I read is science and technology, things that are based on facts. Yeah. Because I don't read a lot of fiction because I don't need to, because there's so much inspiration from real science. Real. Yeah. Because reality is very strange in itself. I mean, there's an infinite amount of inspiration you can find from just reading about at least how we perceive reality, or how it works, or how we think it works. What this is. We talk about death. We don't know what death is. We don't know what comes next, or how things tie together. There are actually 3 major scientists now that I know of that are coming up with new theories about reality. Is time and space even a real thing, or is it some type of is everything just data?
Yeah.
So there's so much we don't know. Yeah. And as a writer, I mean, I can find plenty of inspiration for really good ideas just from reading about the current science. Yeah. And I'm sure, like what you're saying, you're studying nature and these types of things, and even in times like this, as an artist, you can find a lot of inspiration and a lot of ideas, and we have plenty of time to come up with those ideas now. Yeah. And I'm sure both of you guys, your wheels are just spinning right now. Yeah. With all the downtime. And it's kind of it's not a positive time either. There's a lot of dread, a lot of uncertainty, and anxiety, and those things inspire ideas too. So
Yeah.
A lot of good ideas will come out of this dark time.
Yeah, I can't wait to get some ethereal costume work done because I keep like piling ideas onto Soraja. Oh, I did like do a drawing when she's asleep. Oh, look at this drawing. Can you make this? She's like, yeah, I can make that, but you have all these other things that you want me to make. And then I have this list of stuff that I need to make. I'm like, oh yeah, when you get around to it. But I can't help it. We're both like that. She's very dedicated to giving it her all, and we both get caught in a trap. And I have to encourage her because she'll get caught in a trap with, she's like, it's just not good enough. I gotta keep working on this. I'm like, well, okay, but there is a time limit, and even if we're not given a time limit, we have to create one because at a certain point you have to say, I need to move past this project and go on to the other one.
That's a funny thing in itself too. Is just the things that we do as humans. We're constantly doing things and creating things and trying to improve on ideas and actually we're taking ideas out of our minds and making them physical things, and really no one knows why.
Yeah.
We just keep doing it.
That.
And we can't help it. It's just what we do. It's like Daniel and I have talked about our self-motivation and our ambitions and our drives, and we don't know why we do these things or have these ideas. We just this is who we are. We just do them. And like you said early on in the conversation, you talked about acting and it's not you doing it. It's you're not really sure what it is. It's like you're channeling something, and I feel like that too with everything I do. It's once you get into a flow state or you have an idea, where does that idea come from? Or if you're writing, I'll be writing, and these ideas are coming out. They're coming up. They're going onto the paper, but it's like I don't feel like they're mine. I feel like I'm just channeling these ideas. They're just coming out of me, and so those things are fascinating. Inspiration is a fascinating thing. Like what is it? What causes it? Ideas. What causes ideas? Because everything that we experience and that's man-made or human-made is from an idea. It came out of someone's mind, which is very fascinating.
Wow, to think about it.
Yeah.
Well, what motivates, like I can appreciate art. I've got a piece that I had commissioned that we had commissioned that I just found out was finished. I'm super excited. I didn't want to rush the artistic process. I think when we originally put the request in, maybe it was 6 months ago,
Probably
something like that.
Time goes so fast.
Yeah, it flies. But I wasn't rushing at all. I mean, if it took him a week, a day, a year, hey, this is something I'm interested in when you get to it. And Neil's gonna be picking it up next Tuesday, right?
That's awesome.
I can appreciate the artist and the art, and I'm trying to get better at taking time to appreciate those things, right? That's not me.
Yeah.
If I tried to do what you guys do, I would not be fulfilled. So isn't it crazy? Like how I do what I do because it's fulfilling for me. Yes. Right?
Yes.
And I find things to work on, projects to work on, things to be in, and create time limits too for my own. I'm going to use the word art with quotations for my own thing, right? But it's so crazy. You said you grew up in an artistic family, right?
Yes, yeah, I did.
With influence, but that you didn't have to become who you are,
no,
right?
But I just feel like it was definitely instilled into me. Like, for example, most children get in trouble for drawing on the wall. So
right.
Your parents scold you for doing that. My mother was the kind of person, she would just put paper on the wall and say, have fun, draw on the paper. Or if I wanted to roll around and paint, she'd put plastic on the floor and just let me roll around and paint.
That's awesome.
If I wanted to.
Yeah.
So
she
to me,
encouraged
it was, art
Yeah.
is a part of my life. If I'm not sewing, I'm painting or I'm working on furniture. I have to create something. It's just in me that I have to make things all the time.
That's awesome. So in that way, it's encouraged, right? And for you, it was part of what motivated you, inspired you, and something you loved. I don't know you well enough to know this, but you grew up in a religious household, right?
Yes.
You didn't become a pastor.
No.
So just because our parents have a passion for something, or our environment exemplifies this passion for something, doesn't mean you as an individual will be passionate about that thing, right?
That's true.
So it's so crazy, though. You did become the artist, right?
Yeah.
But and you're an artist, and I think you have some things that your family and your environment that were artistic that you pulled from,
right?
Which is really crazy because it's not what you would have thought, right?
No.
From the outside looking in. But I think that's just that process is amazing.
I think you guys are both artists, but you're different types of artists too.
I think it's probably because our cultural difference too.
Yeah.
Like where I grew up, art is normal. Any kind of art form is
Nudity.
normal.
It's very accepted there.
It's fine.
Oh, yeah?
My parent, I guess my childhood is a bit morbid compared to other ones because like Christmas for me, you guys have Santa Claus. We had like Swelter Pete, so I'm scared that if I'm a bad kid, I'm gonna get kidnapped and taken.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
So it's sort of like
it's different.
What's the
Like
other one?
Krampus.
Krampus,
Yeah.
Yeah, so things like I grew up that way where I feel like my life was always in danger with someone's gonna eat me or something as a child.
Yeah.
So
Your mother's family is Indonesian.
yeah, they're
Dutch and
Indonesian, so they're
Indonesian.
very superstitious.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have their belief systems are interesting. I had a lot of really cool folklore, and their process for mourning is very different from Americans. Very different.
Yeah, it is very. I think we don't do this, but in some parts of Indonesia, if someone dies, they keep the loved one for about a year.
Whoa.
In
And
the
they
house.
hang out with them, and they talk to them, and they share stories.
Yeah.
They dress them in their
Wow.
clothes. They bathe them. It's still a family member.
But for us, we don't do that
Yeah.
because we're all in Europe. But I was always taught never to really fear death. It was just a part of life, and we shouldn't fear. Recently, I lost my mother, December the 19th,
Sorry.
and her last piece of advice that she made me tattoo on my arm was like, one day you're here, and the next day your ass is gone. So that really sat with me like, wow, okay. Am I satisfied with what I've done, throughout
Yeah.
life? Because tomorrow I could be gone.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
it makes you think. I feel sad she's gone, but it's life. It moves on. She's prepared me my whole life for that moment.
Yeah.
So when it happened, it was like, okay, I'm here, so I have to make her proud and continue to doing whatever I'm doing. So
Yeah,
have
since
to
you
appreciate the moment.
mentioned that, I have to say this. During this process, if it's cool,
yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
her mother dealing with cancer.
Hmm.
for
I'm
about
like-
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, during this process, I'm not going to get too much in detail. I don't want to. It's not necessary. But her mom was such an encouraging human being that even the nurses, when they met her, wanted to hang out with her. They wanted to come in, even if it wasn't their shift, to check on her, to talk to her, to come visit her. She would push us when we came to visit. We'd come feed her, help her get clean, buying groceries, cleaning the house, spend some time with her, go do a movie. She pushed Soraja to continue to work, even when we knew closer and closer we got, there was less and less time. And we were doing a couple projects as well as the haunted house while we were dealing with the loss. Now, this isn't something that other people haven't dealt with before. But that's what I was saying earlier. When you go on the set and you look around, you don't know what those people are dealing with. There were days that were hard for us, but what am I going to do? Go tell everyone on set, oh, well, woe is me, I'm dealing with this. Because, they're dealing with stuff too. What am I doing piling onto their stuff? So we didn't talk about it. We didn't tell people.
We tried to be the sunshine.
We tried
on
to
set,
stay
yeah.
positive because who knows? Who knows what anyone else is going through? And that was a really great lesson for us. The fact that her mom had, even on her deathbed, this incredible positive attitude, driving us to continue to do art, to continue to chase our dreams, and to comfortably and in a very healthy way say goodbye to her with a smile on her face. While in pain, I can't describe clearly to you how much that changed me and how the two of us going through that changed our perspective on how we're going to treat art in our future.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
So, and I'm just going to interject my 2 cents. What is it? Here's my 10 cents. My 2 cents is free. But you guys have been through a lot. I think marriage is coming, man. I'm telling
Yeah, I
you.
always joke
Yeah.
to everyone. I'm like, that's my husband.
Yeah.
I had a private conversation with her mom, so
Yeah.
it's all planned out.
There you go. Yeah,
You
you're
just gotta find the right time.
right,
because
bro.
we're so
You're
busy.
stuck now. I can tell, man. The more I'm listening, I can hear it.
Oh yeah.
I've been with my wife for 18 years, so February 27th is 18 years. So I can tell. I see it.
Yeah.
I see it, man. I see it.
Yeah. You know, and I'm not afraid of that at all.
Yeah.
We're both. I don't know if it's because we're Aries. We have a lot in common, and we have very similar drive. So we view ourselves in kind of this. We've been referred to as a power couple, which that sounds really cool. But I don't know how true it is.
Yeah.
I think the truth is, if you have drive to do something and you're really passionate, then that's what it is. You're passionate. And it just so happened to have met someone that is passionate, but not just passionate about me doing my art, but passionate about her doing her own stuff. And that was the developing aspect of a relationship. We were able to become friends because we had our own views and opinions and our own personalities. And at no point do we see necessary to feel like we need to fuse completely, because then we lose ourselves and we have no one to share with the other person.
Right.
Yeah.
I was once told that the best part of a relationship is the time that you spend away. And I was questioned. I was like, what does that mean? But what that means is you have a story to tell when you go back.
That's right.
Like if I go have an experience in life, then I continue my journey and share it with her and say, look, we just went through this. Let me tell you about it. Or if we go through it together, we can discuss it.
Yep.
That's what life is, and having a companion. And in this scenario, my companion also helps me understand how to be brave and continue to create art that I think is worth sharing. I have this weird feeling about being worth sharing my art. It sounds strange, or maybe it makes complete sense, but I'm not very tech savvy, and I get online occasionally and I like look at other people's pages, and there is way more makeup artists now than there ever were. Ever. Like when I was growing up, it was a rare thing, and it was mostly men. Now it's any girl in her basement that has a makeup kit. It's like, oh, I did my makeup, you know. So I kind of feel like sometimes, like, why would anyone care to watch what I'm doing? But I have to, she's encouraging me to understand that back when I was trying to learn how to do this, it was a secret. No one wanted to share information. It's still the case to a point nowadays, but now people want to be recognized for what they're doing. But it's also common knowledge how we do some of the stuff we do. It's not as secretive anymore.
Yeah.
So people want to know more about it, and they do appreciate the behind the scenes. So there I can see some value in people seeing the process of us creating art. I can appreciate that from other artists, so I can see them appreciating me. I'm weary of it becoming something it's more about Joh Harp than the artwork that I'm producing.
Well, the sharing of information is what causes innovation too.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I think too the other thing is I think there was this secret. What's this secret formula, right? What's this process? And it was protected.
Yeah.
But the reality is, there was a study, and I'm going to butcher it, so I'm just going to give you highlights. So the instructor broke the class into two parts, and he told part one, he said, "Look, I need you to create this piece of clay, and I need you to make this, and you've got 6 weeks to do it. You only get one attempt at it, right?" And the other part of the class, he said, "You've got 6 weeks to do it, but you can do it an unlimited amount of times you can attempt to make this." So the second part of the class ended up making it hundreds of times. They did it over and over. They would make it to completion. They would figure out they've done something wrong, right? They would make it again. They would just do it over and over and over and over again. The other part of the class could only do it one time. So they had drawn out all these specific things. They put all this thought into it and all this stuff and did one attempt. And what ended up happening was the part of the class that had done it hundreds of times ended up with a better product, even though the people spent more time and were more methodical, at least in their planning phase of doing it once. But it was because they were able to do it over and over and over and over again and learn, have a completed process and learn from their mistakes and see where they made errors,
Yeah.
right? So even if you show someone your art or other people show the art, even the process, the behind the scenes, it still takes sometimes a lifetime to master.
Yeah.
Right? And they've got to have the passion for that. And also, though, I can tell from talking to you guys, like you guys have your own artistic views and opinions that are so unique
Thank you.
from other people that I talk to. So even if I tried to emulate you, right, I'm not going to be able to, the art is not going to come out of my hands the same way it would yours, even if I'm trying to copy it.
Something
So-
I can't even copy myself.
Yeah.
something really interesting about that, though, and just about human beings in general is, Homo sapiens have been on Earth for now they know almost 400,000 years.
Yeah.
And at one point we were almost completely wiped out. I think the population dropped down to like 10,000 people or something. But I've questioned before, like, if we've been here that long, what were we doing?
Yeah.
What took us so long to develop technology and stuff? And I think it's just numbers, because now our population is so high. There's so many of us that are creative, and there's so many different types of people that create different things, have different abilities, and we have the ability to share information. So, like you could write a book at the end of your career. And explain how you accomplished all the things you did. You could have some instructional videos, and you could have a young artist that could read your book and watch your videos and quickly start to learn and absorb your life's work and do what you've done in a fraction of time and then build on top of that. And I think that's where we are now.
Yeah.
That's why technology and innovation is exponentially growing now, because there's so many of us. We're sharing information. We're
Yes.
absorbing each other's information, and it's a really incredible thing. But I think that's the importance of sharing information. I think that humanity as a whole is better when we share with each other our ideas and how we do things. A lot of softwares now are what's the word?
Open source.
Yeah, open source, and that drastically increases innovation, because all of these different people have access to the same information and they can build upon it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's why on my Facebook I always try to make albums and share the progress of things that I make, hoping that maybe it'll inspire someone else to pick up the art, or
And it will, yeah.
maybe you learned something that you didn't know and I
If they have a
figured it out.
passion for it, right?
Yeah, if
even if
they
they
have
don't
a
know.
passion
Same type of
Because
people.
I look at it and I don't go,
Yeah.
oh, I want to go home and make some clothes. Like, not at all. I look at it like with that, like, wow, look what she accomplished. Wow, there's a lot to this, right? An appreciation for it. But it does not motivate me to make this.
Yeah.
Right.
So they've got to have that inner passion or that inner whatever calling for it, or it doesn't have the same effect.
Right, yeah. But I'm
So-
hoping the ones that do have
That's
it
right, yeah,
can
that's right.
find something
100%.
useful on there.
They will, yeah.
I have taught. I'm one of those artists. I'm pretty open about what I do. If you got questions, I'll answer, because I love Dick Smith, and he used to always do that. That was a magical thing about him, his personality, when and if he could. And that's dicey sometimes, But the truth is, if I share information, my personal experience on creating something, I can tell another artist how I did it and how it may have worked or didn't work for me, but then it's in their hands at that point to take that knowledge and to create something. And honestly, in my experience, a lot of the artists, most of them had taken the information and run and gone in their own direction with it. And that's fine, because they need to pursue their own artistic endeavors and their own style. That's very important, to find your own personal style, which actually will change. Any artist that you look throughout history, their style changed. But what I do is and what she does, different ways, but
Yeah, I do fabrication too, and
so
I'm just sewing.
tedious, so time consuming. When people come into the lab and they actually learn the steps, all of the steps that it takes to create just a mask, not even a full body suit, they give up.
I'm sure.
Most times when they learn all those steps, they give up. There's only a rare few that's like, all right, I want to do this. This is the direction I'm going in. Most times they're going to go, let me stick to just makeup or just this one aspect, because in general, an artist in the industry doesn't really try to do everything. I don't live in Hollywood, I live in North Carolina,
That's the beautiful thing about technology. You don't have to now.
That doesn't
Yeah.
mean there's less opportunity here. It means that I have to really try and get my hands in every aspect of the creation process. So I had to learn how a lab works. And basically, I try and run my own lab for any project that I do, which is hard because I'm not business oriented at all. I suck at it. Oh my God, I suck. But can I direct artists to create art? You betcha. Yeah, absolutely. You know, at this point, I have not only made costumes and masks, but I've made life-size human props, stone sculptures, statues, castles, caves.
All kinds of stuff.
I've done massive things and very small things, but what got my very first apprenticeship was the fact that when the artist looked at my work, he said, I like how you do full scale. Like if I wanted to make a creature, it's the size of a human being. I'm not doing miniature stuff. I don't do recreations. I do original monsters life size. And that's where I started. I started there. I wasn't, I started with just the face doing makeup, but.
Did you originally start with like sketches and drawings when you were a kid, or?
Yeah, that's a funny story. I'll make it really short. I was a weird kid, had lots of trouble at school, especially. My parents gave me a psychologist because they were like, we don't know how to help you because we're not at school with you.
It's not in the Bible here. Hold on.
Yeah. So they were like, we gotta find someone that can talk to you, and we need to understand how to help you, because they were legitimately concerned that
Right.
I was just gonna maybe give up or fail.
You just weren't interested.
I
can relate to that.
wasn't. Yeah, I
I
wasn't.
didn't do great in grade school. I did good in college. I
Yeah.
did well in college because I was interested. I wanted to do it. But
They
if you-
teach to
if
everyone.
If you're not into it, then it doesn't.
Yeah.
And we're both entrepreneurs naturally.
Yeah.
So that's always been the goal,
Yeah.
is to work for myself and do what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in doing something that doesn't benefit me.
Yeah.
The school system
For my
teaches
interests.
everybody the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
So
Not
that
especially not for me.
it wasn't you were a failure. The system didn't nurture the things that you had. It didn't encourage your growth, right? The system failed, right? Because it's a flawed system.
Well,
Yeah.
it was
I
the
believe that
early,
today, too.
It was the early days
Absolutely.
of, social disorders for kids, and there was ADD and ADHD, and I was diagnosed with ADHD, a hyperactive disorder, which the doctors understood more at that time. Now, a lot more is understood, especially dealing with medications and handling the minute details of those cases, because there's a general blanket that just throw over it, especially in the early days of it. So I was putting these special
Yeah, give these
classes.
kids meth so they'll behave.
Right. I was putting special classes. I was with, the kids that got in trouble a lot or came from just poor families and thought there was no future for them.
Yeah.
And we were doing our best, and the psychologist suggested, first medication, and they took me off of that, and then they, just let me go and talk to someone for a while, and the psychologist said, I'll give you this shiny 50 cents piece if you can sit in that chair for 3 minutes without moving. I never got that 50-cent piece. And every day I spent with him to get me to talk to him, he would let me draw. And all I drew were monsters. He'd have a board set up and pens and papers, and it was my outlet. I could go there safely and comfortably and draw all the monsters I ever wanted, and no one would judge me. I wouldn't get in trouble for it. I wasn't supposed to be doing schoolwork instead.
It's what you're interested in, though.
And
Yeah.
that's how he got me to loosen up and talk, and how we developed an understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. So if your environment had encouraged the drawing of monsters, right, would have gotten you to open up. Like I think, and Montessori is one way. I think that you have to teach the child in ways. You have to get creative. Like every child is not a fish.
Mm-hmm.
So if you teach them in the water, they're going to fail because some children are meant to climb trees.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Like we've got to
Yeah.
teach them to the environment that they're. And the system is just not built that way. It's just not. It's not ran that way. And I worry about that with my kids because, hey, I'm business through and through, entrepreneur through and through. I've always been that way since I can remember. But I can tell you stories. rip pages out of magazines and sell them $1 a piece in school, middle school, and what do they call it, prophylactic? What do they call them? What's the proper term for a condom? But the health department, would give me 25 a week for free, as many as that. So once I figured that out, I would go to the health department every week. I'd get my 25 free condoms, right? I'd come back to school. I'd sell them for $1 a piece, right?
That sounds like me.
Yeah, like I was a business person, right?
Yeah.
I can't force that on my children.
Right.
I try to, like your mother encouraged art. I encourage business and principles and things like that. But the reality is, if I push too hard, I set my children up to fail because I'm teaching them an environment that I thought would have worked well for me. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that works well for them. Mm-hmm. And I'm already starting. I've got 3 sons. One's about to be 4, a 7, and a 9-year-old. And I can already see they have 3 unique personalities. They're going to be 3 totally different people.
Yeah.
Brought up in the
with
same
different
house.
interests.
With different interests.
Yep.
Brought up in the same household and learn differently and care about things differently. And that's like an amazing process. And I see like this whole little thing. I'm like, man, I've got to figure out a way to encourage each of them to be their best self, regardless if that looks anything like what I thought it would.
Yeah.
Right.
But how do we get the school system to do that? I have no idea. I think
there are certain schools that are doing that now. There's some schools that are.
there are.
Yeah.
They focus on certain
right.
areas, especially with art. There's some schools that are just art schools.
Yeah.
My mom started a school actually with some people. They got a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant that they wrote, several million, and they started a school. We're Western North Carolina, middle of nowhere, and there were some problems with the systems and stuff. But they did do a school where they addressed basically all the other schools. They didn't know what to do with all these people like me that drew and stuff, and all different kinds of people, though. They brought them there, and they worked with them, and it worked really well. It's too bad it's not a big model for public schools across the board, but, people are trying all the time.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think technology will help a lot with that too, with VR technology and stuff like that. I think you'll see a lot more options in the future.
Yeah.
Especially for creative people.
Yeah, I think the school should try to push to be more creative versus encouraging kids to be imaginative and creative versus like, here's this test, here's the answers, remember.
Yeah. I was bored out of my mind in school. So, and this is not me. There are definitely people that are much smarter than I am. In the environments I was in, I excelled. My mother was a teacher. I learned more at home in the small window of time I did with her than while I was at the modern day version of childcare, which I call the school system.
Yeah.
But I would be there and I'd be bored out of my mind. I could apply very little effort, top of my class. Like we set the reading records. I got 3 younger brothers. They all did as well. Like education was important. I just didn't get it at school. And I ended up getting in a lot of trouble. Like I struggled, but mine was not, it wasn't an intelligence thing. It wasn't just like yours wasn't an intelligence thing. It's just, they weren't teaching the way that I needed to be taught. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I got in so much trouble. I think you got in trouble some. So.
I did. Yeah.
I
was bored. I was bored in high school.
I was bored out of my mind. I hated it.
I wanted to be creating things and doing things I was interested in.
Yeah.
And if it was something I wasn't interested in, I just didn't care. And like I've always been fairly proficient in writing and stuff. So in my English classes, we'd have these books and stuff to read. I never read a book. I just I'd write the essay on it. I'd get a good grade on the essay. But I would just read a few things in it and just write 10 pages of nonsense.
Yeah,
turn
fluff.
it in. Yeah.
I figured it out early on. I was like, this teacher can't read.
I may have read a couple of things if it interests me, but
there's 30 other kids in this class. That teacher's not reading the 7-page report.
No, there's no way.
No, I'm gonna, opening paragraph's got to be strong. Final paragraph's got to be strong. The body's, fluff. We're gonna fill it with fluff. Does it meet these? The school is about checking boxes, right?
Yeah.
It needs to be 7 pages, double spaced. It needs a body. It needs an intro. It needs an ending. It needs all these things, right?
It needs to be well written.
Right, like so. If I can check these boxes, I can get away with it. But to your point, school doesn't encourage, at least in my memory of it, this artistic process. Right? There is no creativity allowed. It's do X, Y, and Z and get an A.
Yeah.
And if you can't, there's a problem.
Why don't we have you guys show some of your work? I know you brought some stuff too. And
Oh yeah, I brought a couple things.
yeah.
All right, well, I'll show something while she grabs that. I brought these.
And just try and picture it like it's your face. And that way it'll great. There it is. There it is. Yeah.
Get it close to you.
Yeah.
There you go.
So this one, the mouth opens.
Awesome.
It's I think the name of this character is Slice, and it's a evil jester clown character that worked for a carnival for many years and mutilated his own face.
Very cool.
Now that isn't one of the clowns from Kill Giggles, is it? Are you allowed to say that?
I don't. It's not. As far as Kill Giggles, he had an artist do like artist rendering of the characters. So I had influence in some of the makeup design, but as fearful as Jason is with the clowns, he still gave me quite a bit of influence. And
Okay.
He was. I can be annoying to directors because I'll be like, "What do you think of this? Do you like this? What do you think of this? Do you like this? What do you think of this? Do you like this?" And I'll do that all day. I just send them pictures and messages, and eventually, sometimes they'll go like, just whatever's fine, because they're tired of dealing with me. But he's cool. He's been a good friend to me. He actually gave me my first job when I moved to Greensboro, he influenced like what direction he wanted the clowns going. It was important to him that they had different personalities and feels.
Definitely.
Cool.
The one with the moss on it has been staring at me the whole time.
Yeah,
I
it looks
think
cool.
for some reason. What's the story on that one?
I did this sculpture originally for Brett Mullen's film.
Phantasma.
Yeah, there's this dream sequence where it was based off of Masquerade of the Red Death character. It's this old
Can you pull up an image of that
20s
from that? Is that on
film. It's
Instagram?
It's not the movie. I don't know what it's called. It was this movie that's playing in the background that one of the characters is watching. And then
Do you have any
dream
images of it on
sequence.
your Instagram?
That
Yes, I think so.
You may be on your Instagram some images.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's red.
It's red.
It's red.
Oh.
Yeah, that one is entirely red. Maybe on my Facebook because it's slightly older. I don't remember. I'm not on them enough nowadays. It's embarrassing. But yeah, this one we like organic stuff, so I cast out of this mold and created this organic creature. We've started doing series of things that are fantasy character, but also grounded in natural science realities.
Right.
And that's what this was.
And
This
here,
is
pull it up. And there.
a supernatural character
It's very cool.
that grows from Earth.
That's awesome.
This one was created
I know better than that.
to glow in a black light, which is really hard to see it here, but in all the cracks and stuff, they look kind of dark, but if you look really close in all the cracks,
yeah.
you can see it in the back. The base, where the paint's flaking off, the base is UV reactive. So this character is...
So all of the cracks are UV reactive in that?
Yes.
Oh,
Wow.
that's cool.
And so the stone creature is...
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the sculpture on the far left there, and then there's a painted version of it, and then the one with the moss.
So you mold the latex over the sculpture, and that's how you make the mask?
So what this you're looking at is, on the far left, is the clay version of that. It's sculpted on a styrofoam or polyurethane block buck. It's like a head form. And the casting of the mask is silicone. So I believe the mold for this one is a fiberglass mold, and the casting is silicone.
Okay.
So it would be flexible. And the downside about a latex mask is when you move your head, if it has a neck, the neck moves with the head, so it doesn't ever bend.
See.
And
And you keep all these the molds and stuff, or
yeah, there's the glow demon.
Oh, there he is, yeah.
That guy right there.
Oh, that's cool. Wow.
So the costume we fabricated, we took a bodysuit and I painted it with glow paint. That's the yellow neon parts. And then the rest is little tile pieces of foam that I hand sculpted using scissors and then individually glued them all down to the costume to create depth and texture.
How long did that take you to make that?
Months
Wow.
and months and months. I lose track. I try not to. It's not about, in a sense, it's how do I get to the end, but oftentimes it's like, what is right now what I need to be doing? So I'll just concentrate on one part at a time. You can see I like lots of natural
Oh,
pictures.
see, there's the Joker
Yeah,
that we met.
Okay.
Not the
Okay.
best Joker I've done, honestly. I mean, it's a good version, but as Jokers go, it's not the best version of Joker.
Right.
Makeup looks great though.
Thank you. These are some characters from the haunted house and some sets.
Wow.
Very cool work.
Clint.
And those wings there I made for a music video. They actually are full-size wings that can be folded open or closed.
What kind of feathers did you use?
Real feathers.
I mean, what type of feathers are they?
They're just packaged feathers. I believe they were owl, but there were some
okay.
that were pretty big.
Wow. Yeah, I saw they're large feathers.
But I wanted them to be really. I didn't want anything too. What's the term when it's all one color? Like
Monochromatic.
yeah,
That guy on the left looks awesome.
that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a science fiction insectoid alien that I created.
It's very cool.
Yeah. I almost got a job for a museum doing aliens. They had an exhibit, and I put in my concepts, and they did not accept it. So that's where that came from. It was one of the
Oh, okay.
concepts that didn't get accepted. There's some other masks. Yeah.
Wow.
That's a mask that I made to. I have a small head, so I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if I created a mask that made one side of my head a lot bigger, but the other side was very tight, so that makes it believably look like when you approach me from one side or the other that I have no side of my head. It's
That's awesome.
and down you can see here's some of the construction I've done, some of the caves and stone archways. Those are all built out of wood, and then I do foam, and then I shave the foam with my crew, and we paint them.
Very cool.
Foam sculpture is very fun. It's very time-consuming, very messy,
Smelly.
real smelly. If you go down a little bit, there is this bodysuit. I don't know if you're allowed to show the nudity or not. It's
Sure.
not real nudity.
I don't think it's nudity. It's
uh,
fake.
But
It's art.
Yeah.
this is a full body silicone costume. You can see here the process of me painting it.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I sculpted that and cast the pieces out and then applied it to a bodysuit. I like to make things that the actor can get in and out of very, very quickly.
So that stone archway right there, you sculpted that?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
The skeletons you see down here where they're all in white, they were skeletons that were purchased. I did not sculpt skeletons.
Okay.
The gargoyles at the top, I did not sculpt them. But the crystal in the center at the top, I sculpted that. It has an internal light source that pulsates.
Nice.
And the wooden part of the column is actual wood. But if you look up in the pictures where everything's all white, and then we painted it black to start the base coat, those are all things that we sculpted.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's a glowing character that's inside of the cave. That cave was actually painted with UV colors on it. So there was this black curtain there, and it was cut so that the actor could open it and close it. And with that light effect, it would make it look like there was a ghost
You
appearing.
couldn't
and
see the
disappearing.
curtain. Yeah.
You couldn't see the character until they stepped out into that light source.
That's awesome.
This picture here of the seance, this is something that it's like a kind of a continuing series for me. Justin Reich shot that for me.
That's really cool. And now is that a hard piece that's coming out of your mouth?
It's both. It is a ectoplasm that I created, and then he digitally added the little stringy bits to the end.
Okay.
Ah,
Very cool.
So it's both. There's a character in the back behind me. It's one of my monsters, if you can see it. there, kind of. You
Oh,
can
yeah.
just see a little bit of it. I like to do that a lot. I love hiding stuff inside of art. Hide art inside of art. It's a fun concept. Yeah, there's us. The prosthetics for her I made. I sculpted and cast those for her face.
Oh, very cool.
And I just wanted to go kind of Jack Nicholson.
That's the one you said you liked the most, right?
Yeah.
I like the Killing Joke version.
The Killing Joke
Oh,
version
okay.
is her favorite version of the Joker, which that one's the next on our list. There's the castle I built. You can see
Oh, wow.
with the construction department, they put the structure together, and then my team came in and foam carved every layer.
Nice.
I think it's something like 30 by 60.
Wow.
Very cool.
It's 3 stories tall too.
Yeah, but you can't go, I mean, it's only one story once you go inside. It's a facade.
Yeah.
So, but we built so that the scale goes down as you go up.
So it makes it look taller
Yeah.
than it is.
To create depth. And all of the stained glass windows we designed and painted ourselves.
How long did that take you to build that?
Months
year?
and months. Yeah, I mean, we had to do it within the span of a year, but we are also creating other things during that span.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, this is another in the organic series where we're like exploring
Our
root
at-home
root
photo
systems.
shoots.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's our date night.
Yeah.
We get bored, we'll say,
We get
"All right,
dressed
we're going to
and
get dressed up and take some pictures. That's
Yeah.
how we
That's
have
cool.
dates. Well, one of the ways.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it does, I guess that other stuff is just experimenting with color, reflective makeups, and kind of fascinated by things that look supernatural or glow. And so this was inspired by the makeup on Arnold in
Yeah.
when he played Mr. Freeze.
Mhm.
That's what inspired this look.
We also got a job from this shoot too.
Yeah.
A music video job. Someone found it on Instagram
And
and
said, I want something like that.
Yeah.
So I think
That's
that we
cool.
ended up creating a demon on Jason
Jason,
Buterin.
yeah.
And then I love this little clip. This is Deanna Jones, one of our makeup artists and special effects artists. We created this mask that was inspired by the film Baskin. I just thought that movie was so phenomenal that it inspired these characters. And I think it's neat to, so inside of her mouth, it's full of crushed up Oreos and chocolate syrup. And because I wanted mud
funny.
to be inside of her mouth. So when she opened her mouth, mud rolled out. I thought that was sick.
Probably tastes really good, though.
Yeah, oh, it tastes great. She was like, I'm ready to do that again. Everyone on set was like, oh, can I try? Everyone wants some crushed Oreos.
That's awesome.
You probably have more stuff on your
Cool.
page. Well,
oh, I'm so bad with social media.
Yeah, what did you
show
bring?
the stuff that you.
The things that I brought, going back to the topic of quickly adding accessories to our haunt costumes to interchange. So made these collars. They're so easy, but it gives another dynamic to the costume. And all it is just feathers.
Doesn't look easy.
It is really easy. It's just, you see,
She says.
floor
It's a very
foam.
complicated shape.
Easy for you. Yeah.
It's just floor foam that you find in your garage when you stand on
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just floor foam that I just molded and added some trim and noise on it. So
Looks
Yeah,
cool.
noisemakers are really important, especially in a haunted house.
Oh, I'm sure.
this one here was made for one of the characters at Spooky Woods. We had this one medieval scene where they were having like a masquerade party.
Mhm.
So what I wanted to try to do was make a blended scare in the haunted house. So I came up with this. He came up with the idea of this candle lady. So what I did was in the back, she has a dress that matches, but I added this cape. So in the back, she looks like a curtain. And here, it just looks like a shelf with candles on it.
Oh, yeah.
So I wired all the lights so the candles, they flicker like real candles. So what the actor did was stand up against the wall in the dark, and she looked like a shelf with candles.
That's cool.
Yeah, she was next to another set piece that also had candles on it, so she blended into the environment and made it look like a altar with curtains on either side of it.
That's awesome.
But the actor was
Yeah.
actually one of the curtains.
Yeah,
That's
so
really
when she
cool.
turned around, it was like a vampire monster type
Awesome.
thing.
Very
So
cool.
That
Yeah.
scare worked really well last year.
That's awesome.
That's nice. That's great. Very creative.
Thank you.
Well, do you guys have? Do you guys want to just tell everyone how to look you up, or like if you have websites or your social media pages, stuff like that?
Yes, look me up on social media website pages. I'm on there somewhere. My name is spelled strange. I don't know if it'll go at the bottom, but it's Joh. That's Joe. For those of you that are confused, it's like the word O with a J in front of it. So it's like Joe, Oh, Joe. So Joe is my name. And Harp, like the instrument or the beer, is my last name.
I'll put a link on there for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can look me up. I have Instagram. More modern stuff is going to be on Instagram. I kind of slightly phasing out the stuff that I put on Facebook for multiple reasons, but not everyone likes dark things, so I'm trying
Instagram's
to
better.
variety.
Yeah.
It seems to be a better platform for people to understand. They can just look at my art and not anything else,
Right.
because if the
less
page is
personal.
about me, it's not about my art. So yeah, so I am on Instagram.
Cool.
Joh
Do you have a
Harp
website or
effects.
anything?
I used to, but no,
Yeah. Cool.
I
Is
don't.
Is Joh Harp FX, you said?
Joh
Joh
Harp
Harp
effects.
effects.
Yeah.
I think I just sent you a follow
Okay,
a little while ago before we got started.
cool.
Yeah, so follow back now.
I will. I will.
Of course. And then for me, I'm Soraja, Soraja, and all mine is just Soraja Artistry. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram, I post like random little pictures of things I'm working on. I think my Facebook page is in more detail if you want to see work in progress type stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and we, when it is able to be released, we're working on a film called Frightening Film Fiasco.
Yeah, we just had Brett on.
Brett Mullen.
Yeah.
I can't talk about anything. Sorry, I cannot discuss it. I can say this. I think he mentioned witches, so she's doing the most elaborate witches we can,
Nice.
and basing that off of a lot of historical stuff.
Now, it's called Killer Babes and the Frightening Film Fiasco, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Real
yeah.
tongue twister.
Oh, yeah.
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 Actually, he did mention the witches, and he was saying how one of the actresses really always wanted to play a
Yep.
witch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I remember
I think
that.
she's the same one that when Soraja said, "You want me to show you what I'm working on?" She said, "No, I want to be surprised."
Yeah,
Yeah.
she did not
Oh,
want to
cool.
see anything.
Yeah, which is rare, honestly. It's
Yeah.
that's rare for the performer not to want to know what they're wearing.
Yeah.
And so I can say that for that film, Brett's challenged us once again to create some of, insanely elaborate special effects.
I mean, you got to top drawing quartering a clown. so-
Right.
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah, and so like for what he mentioned, that drawing and quartering effect. There's always one effect in the script when I read it. I'm like, my goodness, you want to do what now? Do what now? So I don't know. This whole thing's been difficult with the shutdown. So
Yeah.
we're doing our best to get back on track and make those effects happen. So
Gives you time to figure it out.
Yeah.
well, yeah, we need it. Boy, we need it. But I am, that being said, I am excited about those effects, like the drawn and quarter effect for Jason's movie. That was one of those effects that we discussed so many times.
Over a year before
Yeah.
we even started shooting.
Yeah, you ask anyone, I'm not a fan of just jumping in and trying to do it. I don't
No.
like that. I like to
Yeah.
pre-plan as much as I can because I'm concerned with how it's going to look and what angle it might be shot and how the light's going to work, and I can't control those things.
You don't want to waste all this unnecessary material.
Yeah, and unfortunately, sometimes my work can, it's something that, like in that case, we're literally ripping it into pieces. You can't really
Yeah.
do that a bunch. You
We
know?
One
did it
take.
twice.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
it twice.
Oh, okay.
We managed to do it twice, and I was nervous. I suppose if you were to film my heart, you could have seen my shirt pounding. Like, I was so terrified, and they know how to wrap my effects and make them work for their films, and I can trust them to do that.
It's called 5 cameras.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that I'm not nervous. You know, like I'm seeing all these things go wrong, and
I think I accidentally cut one of the
that's
cords
right. One
too
of the
that day.
lines that day of the shooting, she cut one of the blood lines, like inside of the body, trying to pull some parts. Yeah.
Mm.
So, you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. And also, I would like to invite people to visit Kersey Valley's page.
Yeah.
Kersey Valley Incorporated do a lot for the local community. They have a lot of fun things for families as well as adults. So look them up, check them out, and come see our show because I love filmmaking, I love plays, but there's nothing like walking through a haunted attraction because it's all of those elements you love all in one, and you can talk to the characters.
Yeah, think it was being in the movie.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the show. You're not just
In the film.
watching it. You're in it. And I encourage people to experience that because the technology, like we discussed earlier, has grown so much over the past few years that we're able to do a lot of neat things, and we're constantly trying to push what we have done. So we're very proud of our show, and we're proud of the company we work with and their desire and drive to keep getting bigger, keep growing, and keep
Yeah.
doing our best. So, that's another way you can check out some of our art, which I'd like to point out that when you're going to look at a haunted house artwork, there's no other way to experience it. You can't film it and watch it later on. It's not going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like the same thing. It doesn't look like, and you can't smell it. So you need to be there. You need to see it and smell it. That's important.
Awesome.
Very cool.
We'll provide a link too to Kersey Valley if you want, like
Yeah, I'll
something
stick
to,
on it too.
yeah, so
So,
definitely.
well, thank you guys for coming on. Really appreciate it. And for all of you watching, if you like the episode, be sure to like and subscribe, and check these guys out on Instagram and check out Kersey Valley. So, bye everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Later.